City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly.
Time it is now 10 o'clock, so we will begin. Item 1, apologies for absence and Chair's announcements. Firstly, apologies I've had from Assembly Member Shawcross and Assembly Member Bacon, and Assembly Member Malthouse has advised he'll have to leave the meeting at 12 o'clock. Can we also welcome back Assembly Member Pigeon after her maternity leave? And clearly, mother and baby are both doing extremely well. We really welcome you back, Caroline. On to announcements. Can I welcome the following who are observing the meeting from the public gallery? We have students from Ilford County High School. Ilford. We have students from Westminster Kingsway College. Hello, Westminster. We have journalism students from City University and News Associates.
Hello.
Hello. And we have St. Lawrence University from upstate New York.
Whoa.
Welcome. Well,
in the building.
Being discreet, like all New Yorkers, as we would expect. Item 2, declarations of interest. Can I ask the Assembly to note the recommendations set out at item 2? And do Assembly members have any other interest to declare, including those in relation to gifts and hospitality? No? Can we note that then? And then we move on to item 3, which is the Mayor's report. So can I ask the Assembly to formally receive the Mayor's report covering the period 29th of August to the 9th of October? And the Mayor will now provide an oral update of up to 5 minutes in length on matters occurring since the publication of his report. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Darren. And since the publication of that report, obviously there's been quite a lot of activity. We went on a big trade mission to China, which you'll have seen, championing not just exports from the UK and from London, but also having considerable conversations and indeed negotiations with Chinese partners about investment in London. You'll be aware, Chair, the Assembly will be aware that billions are already coming into our city, and I expect there will be many, many more billions to come in the next few years. I do think that that trip will be seen to have been a good use of our time and of taxpayers' money. I've got, and I think the members of the Assembly will know that we have set up an ethics panel for the MOPAC, and this is something that I think is important in view of the issue of police confidence, which is absolutely vital for Londoners. It is actually now at a 3-year high, I'm proud to say, in London. and confidence in the Met, and that is very largely because I think the police are doing a fantastic job of bringing crime down across all crime types, and the results are very clear. I think there's been something like a 7 or 8% fall in 1 year alone in crime in this city. That is very, very encouraging. But Alex Carlile, Lord Carlile, will be chairing the ethics panel of the MOPAC to give a public face to that question, and to make sure that there is a point of reference for the city when these issues of ethics and the handling of sensitive questions by the police do come up. I think he'll do a first-class job. There's a terrific report out by the GLA Economics Unit that says that older people contribute far more to the London economy than they receive by way of payments. I think it's a very important point to get across, and I was stunned to see that they not only contribute £47 billion in paid work to the London economy, but they produce only 0.2% of London burglars are over 60. I was delighted to see, which shows what a fantastic bunch of senior citizens we have, ladies and gentlemen. The Assembly has asked briefly for updates on the Chinese visa issue, which came up whilst we were in China, and I think that is a good step forward. Obviously, we're looking at the detail. The question is, could it be rolled out to other countries? Could you simplify it for other countries? That is, in my view, a very good question. What we want to do is to make sure that London, the UK, gets its share of the massive Chinese tourist market, and it's, I think, absurd at the moment that we are underperforming when you consider the large numbers of Chinese visitors who go to other European Union countries when they could be enjoying London, which is the #1 tourist destination for overseas visitors in the world. Chinese tourists, I think, should be coming in greater numbers. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. I'm being supplied with medicine and part really else. Thank you very much. Thank you. Finally, the Assembly has asked for an update on the casualties and the fatalities on cycle superhighways. I really don't want to go much beyond what I've been able to say in the last few days, except to say obviously the sympathies of everybody, I'm sure, of TfL, of me, of everybody involved in promoting cycling in London will be with the victims, with their families, for what has taken place. And just to repeat that we continue with a massive, massive programme of investment in cycling and in cycle safety measures of the order now of £1 billion, and we are determined to make all those routes as safe as we possibly can. And if there is stuff that we can learn from the reports of the various coroners, then of course we will do so.
Thank you. I first have Assembly Member Arnold.
Yes, Chair. Thanks the Mayor for his update around his trip to China. And can I start by saying no one is going to be against a trip by a Mayor of London to China.
Good.
Indeed, the Mayor's office once held 2 offices in China, Beijing and Shanghai, and the first thing that you did, Mr. Mayor, was to close them. And I would say to you that I'd like sort of words of regret, because clearly that means that we've got to start again.
No.
And that was, can I just finish?
Yeah.
And maybe that was at that time a lack of wisdom. So now that you've got the wisdom, just some words of regret, that would be useful. And then also, the thing is, of course, there's a difference between tourists and between students. And it's the students that I want to focus on, because as we all know, students from overseas bring so much riches to this city, including their fees that they bring. So where is the joint-up government that you are a part of that introduces regulations that stop students from India, stop students from Nigeria, stop students from Turkey, stop students from the rest of the world, United States and Canada? But then, because you're on a trip with your mate George, you then decide, oh, but we can have Chinese students. So what is this policy that says some parts of the world are closed to London, but others, because I'm visiting, are opening? Can you just give us a little bit more detail?
A couple of points there, Jennette. The first on the offices and the proliferation of offices that took place under the previous regime to no particular advantage to London. There remains, of course, a London and Partners office in China, as you would expect, and it's done a fantastic job. London is very, very well represented in China. The question was, did the mayor need an office in China? And I think that was superfluous and indeed an unnecessary cost to the London taxpayer.
That's the first part.
And I think you should offer an expression of regret, Jennette, to the people of London for sitting idly by whilst millions and millions were squandered and council tax was put up to no particular purpose. And actually, our strategy has delivered.
It concerns me about the thousands that are squandered with you gadding round the world.
Our strategy has actually delivered for much, much less expenditure by the taxpayer, on airfares and in every other way. Our strategy has delivered far, far more investment. And that was what I pledged to deliver, a bigger bang for Londoners' buck, and that's what we are getting. You ask about students, and I think there's a slight confusion here because the visa, as I understand it, the relaxation or the addition of a special UK category to the Schengen visa, which is I think what the government is trying to do, that applies to tourism and to tour operators. It's not so much for students, and so I think you're asking about two separate things. But it is certainly true that we do want to encourage large numbers of Chinese students to come to this city, and I'm proud to say that London is the single biggest recipient of Chinese overseas students anywhere in the world. We have more Chinese students of any other city in the world outside China, obviously, where they have large numbers of Chinese students in some cities. Indeed, I might go on, and just your benefit.
The question was, the mayor as ever.
Thank you, Assembly Member. If the mayor can just wrap up, then I'll bring back Assembly Member.
I think it would be to the...
If Assembly members can stop heckling, we'll quickly let the mayor complete his sentence, and then we'll bring in Assembly Member.
I think it would be to the advantage of the Assembly and to Jennette to know that in the last 5 years, to pick a period entirely at random, the number of Chinese students in London has actually increased by 149%, and it went up by 12% last year. And we intend to get on with that programme, and and to get to your question, we are in no way setting our faces by anything we do against student numbers from other countries, provided they are legitimate students, they have legitimate applications. That is fantastic. And we want to see more international students because, as you rightly say, they provide about 5 billion quid's worth to the higher education economy in this country, without which it would not be possible for our universities to function. So they add immeasurably to our city. They add immeasurably to our city and to the higher education economy of the UK.
As ever, the mayor is ill-briefed. Each university in London has lost about 2,000 students because of new regulations. But I'll leave it there, and I'll write the mayor a letter.
I think the figures rather refute what you just said.
Thank you. We had a quick response from the Mayor to that. Assembly Member Dismore, is this on this issue, or is it? Yes, Assembly Member Dismore.
But did you know that whilst you were swanning around doing your photo opportunities in Beijing with George Osborne, at home the border agency were harassing Chinese businesses in Chinatown? There have been 11 big raids since July. That's almost one a week, and more often than not, they don't find anyone illegal. These are not intelligence-led. These are fishing expeditions. It's got to the stage that yesterday afternoon, all the shops and businesses in Chinatown, 200 or more, closed for 2 hours in protest because they're very angry at these disruptive and discriminatory fishing raids by the border agency. They think they become easy targets for the UKBA, for the UKBA to attack. These raids are damaging the reputation of Chinatown and Chinese businesses and create and reinforce the negative stereotypes of Chinese people. You, Mr. Mayor, were born in the year of the dragon. Main characteristics: big ego, living the high life, grabbing headlines. Is this why you think you can get away with saying one thing in Beijing and doing something completely opposite in London?
As you know,
what are you going to do about these raids?
Come on. I don't know which year you were born in.
I was born in the year of the horse, hard-working and dependable and reliable.
The year of the... I don't know what animal. I don't know what animal you the year. What is the year of the hippo? Or the year of the slug? The year of the three-toed sloth. I expect.
What do you do about these raids?
What I would say is that obviously
China and
come on,
another thing at home.
come on. You want to hear the answer? You hear the answer. I deprecate any activities by the UKBA that are discriminatory or unnecessarily hostile to any community in our city, and I've made that clear time and time again. And if they have been heavy-handed in this instance, then certainly we will get onto it and we will take the necessary actions. But it is absolutely vital in a great city that depends on talented people coming here to make their lives that we have a serious policy towards illegal immigration, and we do something to make sure that illegal immigrants know where they stand, know that they've broken the law, because what they are doing is undermining the hard work or the effort that legal applicants have made to go through the system and do things properly. And I think it is entirely fair and right that there should be a distinction drawn between those who come here legally and those who are not here in accordance with the law. And yes, I'm perfectly prepared to look at what the UKBA was up to. As you know perfectly well, Andrew, we don't control the UKBA here in London, unfortunately, but I will certainly look at what they have done. If it has been heavy-handed, I will certainly listen to what the Chinese community in Chinatown have to say about those actions. But I am not in any way going to resile from or going to dismiss the notion that you've got to be tough on illegal immigration. Frankly, if I may say so, it was the active decision of the Labour government whenever they were in power, to turn a complete blind eye that undermined immigration in the eyes of many people in this country, and you should think about that because it did serious social damage.
Thank you. Have we any other questions from members on this particular topic? Assembly Member Boff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in reaction to what you said, are you aware that it is the porous borders and unenforced regulations concerning immigration that have made Britain a burgeoning destination for trafficked people, as I revealed recently in a report that I produced, Shadow City?
Yeah, and I
highlighted
the
problem of trafficked people in the United Kingdom.
I thank you, and I congratulate you on your work and on your report. And I do think it is absolutely vital. I go back to, in a pedantic way, to this distinction between legal and illegal immigration. It is vital that we do make that distinction. I'm probably about the only politician I know of at the moment who's actually willing to stand up and say that he's pro-immigration. I don't know, anybody else saying it? You? Okay, a few of you. But, I got the support of the Greens. Great. We can build on that. Labour being very quiet, I notice. But anyway, I'm actually pro. I believe that when talented people have something to offer a society and a community, they should be given the benefit of the doubt. And I speak as a descendant of immigrants and all the rest of it. But you've got to be very, very tough. You've got to be very, very tough in dealing with people who break the law. Because, as I said just now to Jennette, they are undermining the credentials and the hard work of everybody else. And I thank you for what you're doing to stop trafficking in human beings.
Thank you. Moving on now, Assembly Member Biggs.
Cycle Superhighway 2. I think we all know that where the cycle superhighways are good, they're actually very good, and they create a sense of safety. But CS2 is not one of these, and you will have been written to by the coroner in the case of two unfortunate people who died on riding bicycles on CS2 in Tower Hamlets. This is an issue I've been campaigning on for many years now, so I'm speaking as a constituency member. And I was hoping you would be able to make some public undertakings about what you want to do on CS2. This is not meant to be a party point.
No, I understand,
John. And what I'd like to see happen is to us to move towards a totally segregated cycle superhighway on the road in town.
At the Bow Roundabout area.
No, from Bow Roundabout down to Aldgate. I think that's what we're
Okay,
seeing.
well, look,
and there are two other particularly dangerous junctions, both referred to in the coroner's report, at the Bow Roundabout and at Aldgate.
I understand.
And I think public assurance requires you to give some sort of undertaking.
Well, look, I understand that point completely and very sincerely. I will have to, I'm afraid, just refer you to what I've already said on those particular routes and those particular junctions. We are, as you know, at the Bow Roundabout, there's a huge amount that's already now been invested, and we've tried to change the configuration there. This is always going to be an extremely difficult challenge for us on the streets of London, and no solution will ever be perfect. We will do our best. We will invest what it takes, but I can't guarantee to Londoners that we are going to be able to produce segregation everywhere that it is desired. I'm afraid that is simply not a realistic objective, just because there isn't the road space to do it. We will certainly, I know, John, that you've campaigned on this for a long time. We will certainly look at it. But I want to make a general point, if I can, about what's happening to cycling in London, because I think there is.
I prefer to use our time on this specific, actually, Chair, if that's all right. And maybe it'll come up later in the question.
Well, I think it.
I mean,
through you, Chair.
If I could be helpful to you, I mean, I think in the case of CS2, there is.
Break the habit of a lifetime.
There is. I'm always helpful to you. Sometimes you don't recognise it, but I'm always helpful.
Well, okay, great.
CS2, there is the space on the highway to provide for segregation, and I think that would make sense. I'm particularly struck by the comment by the coroner, which was uttered by others, including myself separately, that the CS2 with its design creates a false sense of safety or security for cyclists who see the blue markings as an indication that they've been thought about and that they have the right of way, when in some circumstances they don't, and the capacity on the highway itself just isn't there to make it safe for them. And I think that's a very, very, very serious matter, and we need to urgently respond to it.
Look, I mean, I totally accept the way you have framed the dilemma is completely right. The dilemma is, could we have a system in London where on lots of these roads, and CS2 is an example, you created a segregated cycle lane. The difficulty is that in many cases, and I'm certainly, what I will undertake is that we will continue to look at what the coroner has said and what the police have said about this particular site. The difficulty is that you take away a huge amount of road space, and you perhaps don't even deliver the safety improvements that you desire. Because speaking as a daily cyclist, I think one of the problems that I think many cyclists have, or many full-time cyclists, as it were, have with the segregated option, is that actually they don't always use the segregated gullies. And I'm not convinced that it would be the knockout solution that some people suggest that it would be. But I do think there are further improvements that can be made across the streets of London, and obviously we're investing huge sums of money in junctions, in roundabouts, and across the network. If I can, I just want to try to give a broad picture, John, of where we are in terms of cycle safety, numbers of trips, and could I do that?
Because of the way we manage question time, if the Chair is happy for you to do this for the sake of the meeting, I'm happy, but our time allocation would make it rather difficult.
Are you happy to draw your questioning to a close now?
My questioning has finished.
Thank you. Assembly Member Jones.
That's right.
Mr. Mayor, none of us wants to see deaths and injuries on the road, and I've been a fan of cycling superhighways for many years, and so I want to see them safe. And I'm glad to hear you say, as you did in your opening remarks, that you want to make them as safe as you possibly can. But there are some cycling superhighways that are coming on stream at the moment that aren't as safe as they can be. And I'd like to draw your attention to one. You might not know the detail, but I can just explain. It's an area that's quite near my house, so I know it quite well. It's the Peckham Road. And it's 30 miles an hour, so it has a lot of lorries, vans, some quite stressed motorists who want to get places quickly. So it's a fairly difficult road anyway.
I know.
And the cycle lane along it, which is going to be Cycle Superhighway 5, it's actually got bits that are mandatory, and then then it becomes advisory, and then at a quite difficult junction, it becomes a wobbly white line, and it's not anything in particular. Now, this hasn't, I gather, been started yet, and I'm just asking you now, will you look at these? Will you at least, perhaps, cycle the route and see for yourself? I'll happily come with you, but I know you don't like cycling with me.
I do like cycling with you, Jenny.
No, you don't.
Well, that's such a nonsense. The last time we all went cycling together, you took us on the wrong route, if I see you claimed to know the way to Elephant Castle, and we got hopelessly lost. And then you then and it all turned out to be some complicated left-wing ambush.
We've debated yours and Jenny's cycle rides so many times. I'd actually like you to get on with a substantive question.
But there's a serious point, and I want to thank you, Jenny, for your support of cycling in London. And you have campaigned on it for many years, and you're right about cycle superhighways. I do think that they are a big net benefit to the system. They're there to stay. We're going to keep improving them. We're going to keep rolling them out. Yes, obviously, there are things we can learn. There are ways we can do things better. And I'm conscious, by the way, of the particular controversy that you're raising this morning. I know this discussion. It is active. It is live now in TfL. I can't give you any guarantees about any particular solution that we're going to adopt there. But we will do our level best to make it as safe as we possibly can. And I just want to tell you...
No, don't please go into all these...
Can I give you... it is important, because I think London is reading the headlines...
Fair on our time. We have a limited time.
I think it's really fair to Londoners not to be told what is actually happening.
I realise your time is incredibly in demand, but I would ask that you look at this for yourself and see for yourself. I know you are not...
I have cycled the route, obviously, but I will make... I give you my personal undertaking, Jenny. I give my personal undertaking that I will assess the whys and wherefores of this particular argument myself as a cyclist and see what I think myself.
Thank you.
But I hope, if you listen carefully to what I'm saying, that doesn't give involve any particular undertaking about the solution.
No, that's
Thank
fine.
you. And the statistics that you were going to read out, could you circulate those around members?
Yes, I just think it might be to the advantage of Londoners to know. I think people will start to feel that the statistics are being suppressed.
Mr. Mayor,
I think they'll get a feeling that I'm being gagged.
No.
The simple fact is that cycling is getting safer. And if you look at the last 10 years, there's been a massive increase in cycling numbers, whereas the numbers of deaths and injuries per mile travelled have actually gone down. And
we will have those...
It is important to bear that in mind. The numbers of deaths, one is too many, but they remain broadly the same, if not actually slightly declining.
Thank you. We'll have those statistics
over the last 10 years,
around
whereas the number of cycle trips on our roads has multiplied many, many times over. And I think it's
Thank you. Assembly Member Jones, have you any further questions?
I do.
Assembly Member Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for that undertaking on Cycle Superhighway 5. There's two other places that I'm particularly concerned about. One is the Cobden Junction, which is up near Mornington Crescent, and the other is Tottenham Hale, where there's the removal of the one-way system. And these are both actually very, very busy places. A lot of cyclists use them, and there are times in the morning traffic when there's more cyclists than almost any other form of transport.
Tottenham Hale?
Yes. Tottenham Hale...
the gyratory?
The cycle lane is being removed on the high road. That's the big problem there.
Yeah.
If I send you a note on these, would you please look at them? Because
I'll certainly look at it. I mean, on the whole, I'm in favour. As far as I can remember, we're taking out the gyratory at Tottenham Hale.
Yes, but then the cycle lane is coming out as well, which I'm very worried about.
I think that will be to the advantage. Speaking as a cyclist, that will be a good thing, in my view.
But you are not a normal cyclist. You are not, and you know you're not, because you have a weird view about how these dangerous junctions are actually quite good for, energy levels and adrenaline and that sort of thing. You love them. Most cyclists don't. They're frightened of these junctions. You have to look at it.
Jenny,
you should go out with an 8-year-old child or something, or with Val Shawcross on a bike. Sorry, Val isn't here. And see if they're happy at these junctions.
I understand that point. I don't think I don't understand that point, and I want everybody in London to feel happy and safe on a bike, and I particularly want people who aren't currently cycling or did briefly take it up and then suddenly got alarmed. I want them to feel safe enough to do it. I mean, you're completely right about that. I just want to give you the statistics.
I'm so sorry, my time has run out.
108 million, 109 million cycle trips, and 20.
She's not asked for statistics.
By 2011,
you're going to circulate those statistics to members. I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunities to publicise them.
Whereas the numbers of fatalities, as I say, has remained broadly static. And in fact, although the numbers are small and it's hard to make comparisons, it looks as though they're coming down slightly.
Thank you. Any other questions on the Mayor's update? No, I will then hand the chair over to the Deputy Chair for the next question.
Right, yes, thank you. The first question is in the name of Assembly Member Johnson. Homes for Londoners or investors?
Yes, Darren, thank you very much. Obviously, the answer is I do think that our housing strategy does provide the homes that Londoners need. And we've done 67,000 affordable homes so far. We're well on course to deliver 100,000 over the two mayoral terms. But it's not a question of so much of the type as of the quantity. We must deliver more homes, all told, and that is the biggest and best solution to a lot of the controversies and the discontents around housing at the moment.
Looking at the implementation of your housing policies through some of your planning decisions, for example, you signed off on a 37-storey tower block called One the Elephant last November. There's 284 flats there, no affordable housing whatsoever in those 284 units. And in fact, the developers said they wouldn't get as much money for the flats if the buyers had to mix with Londoners living in affordable housing. Is this acceptable?
Well, I don't think that that's exactly what the developers said, but what they have undertaken to do, and what they are doing, is to build affordable homes off-site, and that is, as you know, a regular solution to the problem of building affordable homes in London. It's not one that we necessarily always encourage. In fact, in general, I like to see a mixture. I like to see mixed communities. I like to see affordable homes on site as far as possible. And certainly what I don't like to see is developers saying, "Oh well, we'll give the council this dosh for the affordable. You have that." And then actually, what happens is that the councils concerned don't use it to build affordable homes, and that we are fighting that practice tooth and nail.
But is this approach really acceptable? You said you don't really like it, and that you want and that you want to see mixed developments. Well, you have the overall planning policy-making powers through your London plan and through your housing strategy. Yeah. You have the planning decision-making powers on these large developments. Are you not going to clamp down on this sort of abuse of the planning process?
Let's be clear. What we're doing is allow development to go ahead that would otherwise have been stalled. I think it's remarkable, given the crunch that we had, the freeze in credit, the difficulties that the banks went through, the huge deficit the country experienced, that we were able to deliver a record number of affordable homes. But you cannot get these developers to move unless they have the funds coming in, and that very often means having market housing leading the project. You must have market housing leading the project, and that is, I'm afraid, a fact of life. And that is the way to get more homes built. The answer is, in my view, to put our land in as we've done. We've put, I think, more than £1 billion worth of public land has been made available. I think possibly more than £2 billion now actually has been made available for development since May last year. Make the public land available, get the developers to accelerate, give them a kind of use it or lose it threat. Tell them they've got to get on with it, and that is something that will. You're starting to see much more building going on in London now, and the reason it hasn't been going on, quite frankly, is because of the credit crunch, a huge amount of market apprehension, and people's difficulty in getting mortgages. I want housing of all kinds. I want housing for social rent, I want affordable rent, I want stuff for market rent, and I want part by part rent.
You say you want housing of all kinds, but so often we're seeing more and more luxury developments and not enough affordable housing. And this attitude from developers that the affordable housing should either be tucked away somewhere with a separate entrance and separate lifts and so on, or off-site somewhere else. It's like something out of the Edwardian era, out of Downton Abbey or something like that, where the poor servants have one entrance and the wealthy have another entrance.
Well, that was a practice, by the way, that was started ruthlessly under the Labour government. They all sat there like puddings while it began. Absolutely, the idea that you'd have separate. That's absolutely the case.
I've complained about all governments doing that.
I'm afraid because of the service charges and the way things work on some of these developments, I'm afraid that is an inevitability. But what you're at least getting is more affordable homes. And you're getting more homes full stop. And if you didn't get that investment, if you didn't have the developers' confidence that they could go ahead with these developments, then we would be in an even bigger crisis than we are now. I fully accept that the number one issue facing our city is a shortage of housing. But I think that if you impose extra requirements on developments, if you say that they've got to be 100% affordable and you make their plans uneconomic, you will simply fail to deliver the housing that you want.
So are you going to do anything at all to clamp down on developers with these unacceptable type of housing
because
projects?
Are
you going to do anything at all?
Well, it depends what you mean. I regularly kick out schemes that don't have enough affordable homes. If that's what you mean, then the answer is yes.
Are you going to use your planning powers to insist on genuinely mixed developments?
I always insist on genuinely mixed developments.
And One the Elephant was an example of that, was it?
Where that is not possible, we have off-site affordable homes. You cannot allow the best to be the enemy of the good. Under the programmes that we've been following, we've actually built more affordable homes, and the vast majority of them are in mixed communities, and that is the way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I hand the chair back.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. We now move on to the second question. Are there any supplementary questions? No. We then move on to the second question on the order paper today in the name of Assembly Member Pigeon, asking about the part-time travel card.
Yeah, I thank you very much, Caroline, and welcome back, and congratulations, as Darren said. This is an interesting idea. I've been receptive to it in the past. I think the difficulty is that I don't want to overcomplicate the ticketing arrangements in London. And my feeling is that when people get to come to buying their ticket, what they really want to know is that there's simplicity and that they are not going to be foolish or ripped off by getting the wrong one. And what we want to work to is a situation in which the one-day caps are frozen, so that in the end they come down in line with the same sort of discount that you would get for a period season ticket, and therefore the need for a part-time travel card eventually evaporates. I hope that's not. That's I think the best way forward. Just to work on the one-day cap, so people have the confidence, and when they use their bank card, as they will very much in the future, and they go for a one-day cap, it will basically be giving them the same kind of a discount, same kind of advantage as a travel card or a season ticket.
But this feels a very long way off, what you're talking about, yet you've been receptive to this idea I've put to you before. But there's around 900,000 people working part-time in and around London, and if you look at London and the South East, over 2 million people are now working part-time. It's the highest number since records began on this. And in your own jobs plan, you'll want to increase the number of part-time workers. The existing travel cards really only help if you work 5 days a week. Would you accept that really, if you don't do something soon, you're failing the huge number of part-time workers? In fact, you're in effect discriminating against huge numbers of Londoners.
Well, I understand that objection, and I understand the point that you make, and we certainly hugely value. I mean, obviously, London massively depends on the work of part-time workers and everything they add. The difficulty is, I think, in overcomplicating the system when we are moving towards a much more simple regime where you will maintain the freeze on the one-day travel caps and thereby drive down the amount you pay over a week or over a month anyway.
But, you know, the government have recently announced a whole range of ticketing proposals, including part-time season tickets, and the government have said for a number of commuters using the railway 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, is no longer the reality, and we know that when you talk to people across London. We believe the railway should provide a better offer for commuters travelling fewer than 5 days a week. Do you agree with the government on this?
Well, I certainly think that it would be I think what the government had to say about trying to keep the price of rail fares down was a good idea, as you know. I think that what they should do, and I've said this before, is that they should have tax deductions for season tickets, and that would be the way to help people of all kinds who need to commute into our city from. Not just from London, but from further afield, and who use the heavy rail and who are paying huge sums of money. It will be a massive, massive help to people who are facing a very high cost of transport. And I think that is the most effective thing that we could do.
That won't really help an awful lot of part-time workers who may not even be paying that much income tax. But pay as you go that you talked about earlier isn't actually that much help. Whilst you're saying you might freeze the daily cap going forward, it's over £15 a day for a one-day travel card. Shouldn't part-time workers really be getting a far greater discount on this? Now, when I raised this with you previously, in March you wrote to me and you did confirm that you'd asked TfL to consider this issue, and they have confirmed that the new Oyster software system provides an opportunity to introduce a part-time travel card. It could be a cap for using your card for 3 days, so it's not a complicated addition to the system. And what I'm really worried about is London should be leading the way on this. Your administration should be leading the way on this, and ultimately the government seem to be leading the way on this issue, and you're going to be lagging behind the government.
No, on the contrary. Well, London is leading the way. London is miles ahead, as usual.
Will you look at bringing in a 3-day cap on Oyster to help part-time workers who are really hard-pressed?
Well, I've given you, I think, what is a pretty cogent explanation of why I think that wouldn't work. What we need to do is to get on with implementing the new technology, the contactless payment system, using you'll be able to use your bank card basically to travel everywhere, and to make sure that the cap, the cap on one-day travel continues to be frozen, and that will help to bring fares down for part-time travellers as well.
Well, freezing the one-day cap is welcome, and I'm sure that's great, but that's not going to help part-time workers now. Will you look at not a complicated system, but having a 3-day cap on Oyster, as the technology allows, to help part-time workers in London?
My worry is, I must be clear with you, Karen, my worry is that this will overcomplicate the system, and we need to...
Doesn't sound complicated to me. Will you look at it, yes or no?
No.
Well, many Londoners who've got in touch with me today
I do think I've given. If you want a straight answer, I'm giving you the answer. I'm not going to fool around and pretend to you that I'm going to go off and ask TfL to look at this again. They've looked at it. They've concluded it's not a sensible way forward. We're using contactless payment systems to to produce an identical effect in what we think is a better and more progressive way. We don't want to have people bamboozled by an endless series of different fare packages. One of the most important things for travellers in London is they should feel secure that they are getting the best deal when they swipe on.
Part-time workers really still will lose out under your system. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
They'll be much better off, as indeed will everybody else.
Thank you. Assembly Member Bob.
Can I remind you, Mr Mayor, that some months ago the GLA Conservatives produced a report called Homeworks, authored by the Deputy Chairman, too modest to admit it, which recommended exactly this, that we should have a part-time travel card,
right.
And we can we've even trialled that in there as whereby you could refund on a main.
So it's a coalition policy.
You could have a system of refunds. Well,
so the Liberals and the Tories
are
we
proposed it, and other parties have followed our lead, which is fine. So this is very much in favour of the part-time card, and I think possibly you've been listening a bit too much to your advisers at TfL.
Well, fair enough. All right. Whose fares would you have me put up to pay for this?
The flexibility that a passenger gets...
Whose fares do you want me to increase to pay for this?
I would anticipate that the flexibility...
We're going to let Andrew put the questions to you. That's the way it works.
Well, all right. I can't remember what his report said about who's going to pay for this.
Well, if you listen to him, he might tell you. Assembly Member Bob.
Okay. He's going to tell me.
That's why I've asked you, Mr Mayor, to read it again. And just to say that the flexibility of a travel card might increase the number of people who want to take it up, and therefore there may not be any financial downside to introducing that kind of flexibility.
I've heard that.
And it's something on which we rarely disagree on, Mr Mayor.
Well, it is tragic that I should be at variance with what is evidently a coalition policy. I don't know whether it was the Conservatives or the Liberals. Since the Conservatives are much more imaginative, I imagine it was your policy to begin with, Andrew, and I congratulate you on your intellectual fertility in coming up with it. But this is not a policy that I think makes sense. Unfortunately, there is no free money. It's all swings and roundabouts. You do something like this, you take a sizable chunk of money out of the fares box. You've got to find it somewhere else. You either put up fares overall, or you find some other group, Freedom Pass holders or whatever. People the money's got to come from somewhere.
I understand that.
And I think the approach that we're adopting is sensible, it's progressive, it's simple, and it involves using new technology to give people confidence about the fares that they're paying.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper on the housing strategy in the name of Assembly Member Copley, asking about the publication of your housing strategy.
Tom, thank you very much. I feel a bit surprised you should ask this, really, because I think there's every possible reason to want to renew our housing strategy in view of what has happened since 2010, where, apart from anything else, we've had a census showing that London's population has gone up by about 600,000 since I've been mayor, or something like that. Since 2008, we've had the successful devolution to London, of the housing regeneration powers of the HCA, the LDA, the Thames Gateway Development Corporation, and so on. We've had Tony Travers' stuff about how to finance London, all that, how to devolve funding to local government. A lot has changed. I think housing is now the need to provide huge numbers of affordable housing, which you've discussed already with Darren. That is top of our agenda across the board. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have a new strategy.
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Mayor. But the point of the question was you've already been you were consulting on a new draft strategy. You launched a consultation, I believe, in 2011. We've then been waiting. We've been getting delay after delay after delay from your office. Whenever we've asked when that final strategy is going to be published, you've always pushed the time back. Why now, having had that previous consultation on a draft strategy, have you seemed to have ditched that in favour of consulting on a new one?
Well, I've just given you the answer. It's because there's there is an imperative to deal with a very severe housing crisis, which is driven by a demographic phenomenon, the scale of which London has not seen since, well,
yes, but why have we had to wait this long when you were already consulting on a new draft strategy in 2011? So I've got the timescale here. In 2010, you published your first housing strategy. In December 2011, you published a draft revised housing strategy for consultation. That consultation ended in March last year. Now, nearly 2 years after the launch of this consultation, you've still not published the final strategy. Why now are you consulting on a new one?
I profess myself completely baffled by the question. We are getting on with a new draft strategy that is designed to fit the circumstances of London today.
Yes, but why has it taken this long when the previous strategy you launched in 2010, you then consulted on a new draft strategy, which you didn't publish a final draft strategy, you kept pushing it back, and now you turn around and you tell us you've ditched that one and you're launching a new one. Why have we had this dither from you on this very important issue, which you yourself say is the most important issue?
I've done my best to try to elucidate you and everybody else about what our thinking is. It is that the...
well, there doesn't appear to be any thinking. There certainly doesn't appear to be any strategy.
Well, again, this is an administration that has delivered a record number of affordable homes, has put about £2 billion worth of public land forward for development, and is continuing to do everything we can to tackle the housing crisis in London. It is appropriate when you have changes in the conditions on the ground, the demand, the legal basis on which we can act, and that's been a very, very important change since 2010. It's entirely appropriate to refresh the strategy. Well, what would you expect me to do? But you would keep going with the old one. If I kept going with the old one, you'd be the first to start. You'd be the first to say we will. Why aren't you having it? You'd be
someone in your team popping out and saying thought it was important that the strategy was refreshed back in 2011. And yet we've been waiting since then for you to actually publish a new strategy. And now apparently that's been torn up and you're consulting on a new one. So it looks like we're going to have to wait until May next year before we get a new housing strategy published. That will be 4 years after your previous housing strategy.
Well, as you know, London government strategies are very important documents. They need a lot of work, a lot of elaboration, a lot of consultation. And it is only reasonable when the grounds, the demand changes so dramatically as it has over the last few years, thanks very much to the economic success and the desirability of London. It is only reasonable to try to, and the legal basis on which the GLA can operate, it is only reasonable to look again at the strategy. I think it's common sense. I'm surprised at your question.
I'm surprised at your answer. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Assembly Member Knight.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Mayor, on Friday I launched with Vincent Cable the Lib Dem Group's contribution to the debate on London's housing crisis. And I've sent you a copy of it. We're proposing that, essentially, that the number of affordable houses in London should be upped from the current programme you referred to earlier, about 100,000 over your term, to nearer 400,000 through a big increase in public investment and a big use of public sector land for affordable housing. Mr Mayor, will you commit to reading and considering our proposals as part of your housing strategy?
I will certainly commit to considering your proposals.
Thank you.
Or I commit to reading your document in its entirety.
It's a very good read, Mr Mayor, and I've sent you a copy.
I'm sure it is.
Thank you. Assembly Member Dismore.
Written with your usual blistering style.
Assembly Member Gavron.
We talked about a severe housing crisis, Mayor,
yes,
and I want to suggest something that could be in your housing strategy when, a couple of things, when it does eventually come out. We know, and you and I have discussed this, that we have 210,000 homes with planning permission which are not being built.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that. And in May, you told me that you thought land banking, and many of them are being banked to drive up value, is pernicious. Your word was pernicious. And you've just talked about something that you talked about in your vision, which is introducing a use it or lose it planning permission. And you've also talked at MQT with me about CPO powers and that they could be used, you said, in a way which respected property rights. Now, I quote here, and you said, I am all in favour, this is May, I am all in favour of using the CPO powers, but we are not living in a Stalinist system, and I can't take land willy-nilly of people. This is not Zimbabwe or whatever. But, you said, you went on to say, where there are clear cases of land banking, it will be massively to the advantage of this city. And those things need to happen, meaning your policies, those things need to happen, and they need to happen fast. Now, that was in May, but last month you said, in an article in the Telegraph, you won't get developers risking their cash to build if they're told that they are vulnerable to Mugabe-style expropriation. Now, has your policy changed?
No. I'm in favour of. I certainly think we should be able to have a use it or lose it clause, and developers should be under no illusions that they shouldn't just sit on their land and wait for prices to go up, and that is a thoroughly appropriate way to behave towards them. What I'm not in favour of doing is confiscating their property in a draconian, arbitrary and Mugabe-esque way. I think there is a distinction between the two. And I'm not entirely sure what the policy of the Labour Party is now on that, but it seemed to me that they were shifting in the direction of being not so much minatory towards the developers as confiscatory. And there is a law of private property in this country. We do have a doctrine of property in this country. It is important that if people hold title to possessions in law, that they should not be unfairly deprived of them. On the other hand, if they are simply sitting on property for a very, very long time, then there should be, in my view, some powers by the state, by the city authorities, to get them going. And that is the distinction I was trying to
That's good to hear. But I'll tell you what I think changed. I think that the Tory press, which got under your skin, the Tory press trashed Ed Miliband for espousing exactly the same policies that you had brought forward.
No.
And you
well, that's often the case that I find I've come up with a policy in Labour
They called him Stalinist, and they called him Stalinist, they called the system Stalinist, and you pandered to that. And what you're doing is playing politics when there's a severe housing crisis. It's sheer hypocrisy.
Nonsense.
And it's very
nonsense. I think what you need to, if there is a particular case of egregious land banking that you wish to draw to my attention, and where you think we could make progress by some sort of CPO powers or some sort of use it or lose it approach, then I would be more than happy to take that up. What I'm not in favour of is a wholesale confiscation
but nobody's talking about that.
Well, it's very alarming sometimes to read some of these things from the Labour Party because we don't know to what extent the doctrines of Marx are still, all property is theft. Said Karl Marx.
Can I move on to another issue?
And that is not a view I hold. That is not a view I hold. I worry that at the top of the Labour Party there are people who think that all property is theft and it should all be held in common. And
could I move on to another issue?
Let's move on from Karl.
I wanted to move on to the other issue that I wanted you to raise in your housing strategy. This is about key workers, and let's look at that because it's an area that I think really ought to be in your next housing strategy.
Yep.
And you have a situation where there are many teachers, nurses, firefighters, and they need dedicated key worker housing. Do you think there's enough of that? And do you think it's affordable?
I think there isn't enough affordable housing.
For key workers?
It depends what you mean by, of course, for key workers, but for all the
Teachers,
people
nurses.
who are integral to the running of the London economy. And that is what we are trying to do, Nikki. We are trying to build we need 40,000 homes a year. And I rather agree with what I think Stephen was saying just now. The scale, the pace of what we need to do, I don't think is being understood at the moment by policymakers in Whitehall. We need to build tens of thousands more homes a year than we have ever built before. And that will be massively to the benefit of the whole UK economy, by the way, because it will deliver a surge of economic activity in the Midlands, where they make windowsills and bricks and heaven knows what, and plumbing, and it will drive the whole of the UK. And we should get on with it.
What I'm trying to get to is that there's a special case with key workers. I want to raise an example for you. I've just been in correspondence with a nurse, a key worker tenant in central London, and she was nominated by a health trust in her locality. Now, because of the recent affordable housing reforms, which you're backing, up to 80% of market rent, her rent is pegged annually at up to 80% of market rent, and it means it has gone up. She's lived there 18 months. It's gone up now 15% in order to match what's the market rate of 80%. And her rent now costs her £1,100 a month for a
which is basically the market rent.
No, it's 80%. A small one-bed property is in Westminster, but it would, in fact, it would be the same in many areas. And this housing association, which owns it, is one of the best mission-driven ones. Yep. Now, do you think a rent of £1,100 is affordable for a senior nurse?
Of course, the solution. I mean, I understand the problem. If you look at the affordable rent model, it is not meant to be 80% of the market rent everywhere. On the contrary, it is meant to be an average of 65% of the market rent, and in many cases, it will be much lower than 65%. And it will be approaching target rent levels, approaching social rent levels. But obviously this is a particularly hard case, and there will be tough cases like that. But it is not always going to be possible for everybody to live exactly where they want in exactly the affordable home that they want. I'm afraid that is a sad reality. That is a sad reality of life. The answer is to build more homes, to build more affordable homes, and to build more homes for market rent. Yes,
could I just say that, in the London Plan, 2008 one, there was dedicated key worker housing to which you could allocate and nominate. Your plans, your strategies since then have been utterly silent on key worker housing. Well, don't you think, given the cost of living crisis, that a nurse should be able to live reasonably close to where she works, and that you should be reinstating key worker housing in your new draft strategy?
Well, obviously, I want everybody to be living as near everybody who contributes to the London economy, and it is very difficult to define and distinguish between people who are more key or less key than others, and I'm afraid this is a very invidious comparison. Many people feel that they are key to the running of our economy, and I think if you look at the way our city works, it is absolutely vital that we have large numbers of people living near their place of work across the city. And that means building more homes, it means building mixed communities everywhere. And that is what we are doing. And what I won't have, and what we have fought against over the last 5 years, is any kind of ghettoisation of London, any attempt to segregate, any attempt to push affordable out into different areas, or to create different districts for different socio-economic groups. That would be completely nuts. Completely nuts. What you need to do is continue with the way London has developed, almost uniquely, by the way, amongst European cities. And it's one of the reasons why this is such a successful city, is you do have a wide range, by and large, across the city. If you look at the big map of London, you have a wide range of socio-economic groups living side by side. And that is the way
Assembly Member Dismal.
Do you think that estate regeneration is about providing penthouses for oligarchs?
No, but of course
Well, that's very interesting you say that, because you signed off the West Hendon regeneration scheme. I wrote you about it.
Which one?
The West Hendon scheme. You said you read my letter about it, but you obviously have a short attention span.
No, I couldn't hear what you said, old man.
Yeah,
You've got to speak up.
Do you realise that...
You've got to stop slurring
when
your
you
words.
signed it off, Councillor Tom Davey, your colleague, your Conservative colleague, who's Barnet Council's Conservative Cabinet Member for Housing, told the Barnet Planning Committee he was happy about these homes being bought up by Russian oligarchs and Gulf oil sheikhs, whilst at the same time there are no more additional affordable homes on this estate. And when the council cut 238 affordable homes from Beaufort Park housing development, Councillor Davies said again, quote, "I would prefer the homes to be sold on the private market because you get people in who will be paying a higher price and rely less on public services.
Well,
my ideal Barnet household is one which pays council tax but doesn't use the services." Now, it seems to me, Mr Mayor, that you are in favour, politically, of this social engineering. It's the sort of thing that Dame Shelley Porter got up to in the 1980s, in terms of deporting the homeless out of London, being mean and nasty to the homeless. That was her policy. This is doing nothing. The schemes that you have approved are doing nothing to solve the housing crisis in Barnet.
Nonsense. What we are doing is enabling schemes to go ahead that otherwise not go ahead. If you look at the Olympic Village, which we were
I'm talking about
yesterday in the House,
schemes.
the Olympic Village has got 50% affordable homes on it. I'm absolutely categorical in my insistence with developers that they must have on-site affordable housing wherever.
So what are you doing
possible.
about the cut
as I
in
said,
affordable
as
housing
I said earlier
in
to
Beaufort
Darren,
Park? Why did you sign off
you
a
should
programme
come into our
provides
planning
additional homes
meetings
for oligarchs and oil sheikhs? That is their policy. That is your policy. You signed it off.
Am I hearing some xenophobia from the Labour Party? Do they not like people?
You signed it off. You signed it off.
Do they not like? Is that right? Do I detect that they turn up their noses at international interests? They don't want it. They don't like people from abroad.
Can we let Assemblymember Dismore complete his question? Then you can answer it. Assemblymember Dismore.
Well, I don't think we're going to get sensible answer to that one. Let me try another one on the Mayor.
Oh, what was his question? He says he's completed his question. What was his question?
Do you support restrictions on increases in rents and service charges for shared ownership schemes?
Sorry, you have to say it again. I can't understand a word you said.
Well, wash your ears out. Do you support restrictions on increases in rents and service charges in shared ownership schemes?
Well, I'm certainly in favour of making sure that we have a system of rentals that doesn't allow landlords to jack up the rents unnecessarily, and we've got an accredited landlord scheme. But I don't believe that from here in City Hall we can dictate every detail of the tenancies or of shared ownership schemes. I don't see how that is going to work.
You said, I was asked by Beaufort Park, back to Beaufort Park again, where you agreed to reduction in these affordable homes. I was asked by Beaufort Park resident Caroline Mandelson to ask you that question, because in the last 5 years that she's lived there, her service charges have gone up by over 100%, her rent by 50%, and her case is all too typical of the shared ownership schemes there and elsewhere in Barnet. She can't afford these increases, which have pushed her into mortgage and council tax arrears, to the extent that the council sent in bailiffs for a council tax and took possession of her watch. She's asked me to ask you that question. She says this. Well, let me tell you what she says before you interrupt.
All right.
She says, "I was sold a dream which has turned into a nightmare. I would never have committed to shared affordable housing, which has brought me to financial despair, because there's no control on these landlords jacking up the rents and service charges, and you don't want to do anything about it."
Okay, well,
so what can you say to her? If you don't want to do anything about her service charges, you don't want to do anything about her rent level, what can you tell her? How can you reassure her that you can help her?
If you'll just calm down and stop sort of ranting, what I will certainly do is look at her case. I will make sure that we analyse very sincerely the problem that she faces. I will see if there's anything in my statutory powers that I can do. I'm not remotely certain that there is anything, but I will just remind you and remind everybody that actually, so far, our part-by-part rent schemes have helped about 50,000 people to have a share of their property, which they would otherwise not have. And to answer your deranged initial attack, on international investment and your xenophobic denigration of oligarchs and sheikhs and
that was your Conservative councillor colleague who said that.
If that is really the view of the Labour Party, then heaven help us.
It's the view of the Conservative Party.
But what I will say is I don't think London should be reserved for such characters, welcome though they are, but their investment does help to drive the creation of property that would otherwise not exist. And that is the fact. That is what we want to encourage. If you look at the situation at the moment, about 6% of London sales are going to overseas investors, overseas buyers. The proportion actually is not higher now than it was in 1990. So there is a lot of mythologizing. There's a lot of anxiety that I think is unnecessary. These investments are very, very valuable in getting stuff going, in getting developments going in our city. And I deprecate the kind of language that you use. And I'm surprised to hear it from a Labour Party that is supposed to be embracing a multicultural, multinational destiny for London.
Your Conservative colleague's quote I gave you.
Thank you. Can I just warn all members and the Mayor, if you constantly keep speaking over each other, it becomes totally incomprehensible for anyone watching here or outside, let alone for the poor person who's given the job of trying to produce a transcript of this meeting. So let's not speak over each other.
Well,
Assembly Member Arbour.
Stop him wittering on.
You choose to waste your time, Mr Mayor, in reading the report which has been referred to by Assembly Member Knight. Will you take into account that it's a total work of fiction, particularly when you consider the deplorable performance of the rotten borough of Kingston-upon-Thames, which over the past decade of Liberal Democrat control has produced the second lowest number of affordable housing in London?
Yeah. Well, Tony, with your characteristic sagacity, the wisdom of many years of experience of hand-to-hand fighting with our so-called coalition partners, you've drawn attention once again to their hypocrisy and the fundamental vacuousness of their ideas. Well done.
Happy to do that, Mr Mayor. Happy to do that.
Assembly Member Boff.
Should you, Mr Mayor, experience incredulity from the Labour Party as to your reticence to use CPO powers, could I ask you to divert them to the Colville estate in Hackney, where that Labour council is paying way under market price for leaseholders' properties, leaseholders who've been there for 30 years, is paying way under market value, and remember Colville Estate is in Shoreditch, so that the Labour Council there can get some cash by building penthouses for the wealthy in Shoreditch. So if the Labour Party again do say, let's use the CPO. Yes, they love using the CPO in the most Mugabe-esque fashion, as you have outlined, in London at the moment in the Colville estate.
Are you saying they practice one thing and preach another?
Far be it from me to make such an accusation.
Are you saying they're a bunch of hypocrites?
Far be it from me.
Well, I am disappointed but not surprised in what you say about the Labour Party.
Thank you. On that note, we'll move on to the next question on the order paper, which is on Crossrail 2 and tunnelling expertise in the name of Assembly Member Tracy.
Yes. Dick, thank you very much. Characteristically on the ball. This is a big issue. Andrew Walston is absolutely right. In an ideal world, you would simply turn the tunnel boring machines around and send them down Crossrail 2 as soon as they finished Crossrail 1. Actually, probably that's technically inadvisable. Those machines will probably have worn out. What you are building up is a massive bank of skills in this city. And yes, I think ultimately they will be involved in Crossrail 2, but before that comes up, there are plenty of other things for them to get their teeth into. HS2, the Tideway Tunnel. We're looking at a new generation of nuclear power stations. I see, quite rightly, many of the skills actually are the same as are being acquired in the tunnelling academy we have and elsewhere.
Yes, it's very worrying that I think there's a team of about 3,500 real experts in tunnelling that could easily be sent around the world, or they could decide to go around the world, because there are so many projects. I mean, there's a metro being built in Copenhagen at the moment, and a whole lot of things, as you know, going on in the Far East, in China and so on, and indeed in the Middle East. Can I ask you, is there yet any specific plan, finalised plan, for a route of Crossrail 2? I mean, how near are we to getting it?
The consultation, as you know, has been, I think we've had a 95% approval level for the plans. I mean, I think the metro-style route that we're favouring is the route for that is now pretty well known, and I advise you to get on the website and have a look at that.
Yeah. Well, I know what the proposed route is, the proposed route, but I'm rather concerned at just how much specific planning is happening, and whether it is really going forward, and indeed to what extent the government is being included in this so that they can come to the necessary decisions.
So what is being included?
The planning that's being done by particularly TfL. I mean, I know London First came up with the original idea of the route, but what about what is happening currently in TfL specifically to?
Well, as you remember, what the Chancellor said in the budget was that he's awarded us some cash to get ahead with the development of the route of the proposals. Obviously, we will now be working towards a parliamentary process. This will need a government bill, and the ambition is to get Crossrail 2 in the ground by the mid-2020s. Now, that will be a very tight timetable, but TfL are very confident that it can be done, and that it's something that we are. We've got our foot firmly to the throttle.
So, as I understand it, Crossrail 1 tunnelling will be completed by 2015.
The tunnelling, yes, but then there's the fit out of the station boxes will take much longer.
Yeah, but how soon do you believe that you mentioned the Thames Tideway tunnel? There's, of course, let me remind you, the Northern Line extension into Battersea, and also the possibility of continuing that to Clapham Junction, which is one of the campaigns of Wandsworth Council. Now, and how soon are we going to see the prospect of some more work for these Crossrail tunnellers?
Right. Okay. On the NLE, the Northern Line extension, we expect work to begin by 2015. Right. So that will be out, and that's a pretty fast timetable. The first big tube extension for a long time. So there'll obviously be work there. As I say, the Thames Tideway tunnel works will begin. Well, they'll certainly begin by 2015. I'll have to give you the exact timing of how far and how fast that will go. But that will again be a colossal undertaking. I've said what I've said about nuclear power. It would, in an ideal world, as I say, we would be able to take the skills, take the machines, and simply keep going with Crossrail 2. And that is what we're arguing. If you look at what we're doing now with the 2020 vision, where we are creating and we'll have for your perusal by March, Dick, an infrastructure plan. Which will, I hope, be adopted by the city, so that there will be a series of investments and improvements in London that will basically be politically agreed, and as they do in France, where they just simply finish one thing and begin with the next, we will continue with the infrastructure improvements to London, so that you get on with the Silvertown Tunnel, the NLE, all the other a series of new bridges east of Tower Bridge, and so on. And all these things are mapped out and delivered over an accepted timescale. In France, or that is basically how they do it. And obviously there is some political cost, because some schemes will be more controversial than others, and it may be that priorities change, and it may be it introduces a certain amount of inflexibility into the system. But it at least means that they economise on these. They have a body of skills, a body of workers who are able to go from one project to the next, and that's basically what you're after, and that's what we are going to achieve.
Well, thank you. I hope you'll keep pressing.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper. But can I firstly welcome Parkhill Junior School from Redbridge, who've just arrived. So welcome, Parkhill.
Hello.
Thank you. And then the next question we've got now is conditions in the private rented sector, in the name of Assembly Member Copley.
Yeah, Tom, the most important difficulty that people in the private rented sector face is shortage of accommodation and the cost of rents. And no one is, we've had a long discussion already about the problem. It's shortage of available housing. It is perfectly true to say that in the last year the rate of increase in rents has slightly slowed down. I think rents now increasing by lower than inflation. It was up by less than 2% in the last year. But it is very, very important that we tackle the problem of the difficulties renters face simply by building more.
Well, obviously the supply of private rented accommodation rents are very, very important, and no one would disagree with that. However, there is also a huge issue with conditions for people who live in the private rented sector, and particularly people living at the lower end of the private rented sector. I want to give you some examples. I've asked people to send in stories of problems they've had whilst renting in the private rented sector. So Lisa, who's from Lewisham, said that the block of 38 flats, mostly studios, where I lived, was sold at auction, and we were all given 2 months' notice to move by the developers. I'd been there for 3 years, but many had been there for 10 or 20 years, a few longer. One elderly gentleman had lived there for 40 years. There weren't many studio flats in the local area, and when we all flooded the market, I ended up having to move half an hour away to find accommodation in time. Doubly frustrating, as I was caring for my mother through her treatment for breast cancer, and from living 5 minutes away, I suddenly lived 35 minutes away. Is it acceptable that someone renting in the private sector can be given 2 months' notice to leave their property?
Clearly, as I was saying I think it was to Andrew, we've got to make sure that we crack down on rogue landlords and people who treat.
But Mr. Mayor, this isn't a rogue landlord. This is perfectly legal. Under the law, it is perfectly legal for a landlord to evict someone at 2 months' notice during their tenancy. Do you think that's acceptable, or would you like to see the law change to get rid of no-fault eviction at 2 months' notice?
Well, I think the obvious. I understand the point that you're making and the hardship of the case that you describe, and clearly I will look into it. And if you'd be so kind to send us the letter and the details, well, I'll give you the fullest possible answer that I can. But instinctively,
I most certainly will. But I mean,
if you'd just like me to finish, the difficulty of introducing, and this is the difficulty of introducing more restrictions and more restraints on private landlords in their dealings with tenants is that you may discourage them from putting their homes on the market, putting the properties on the market for rent. And we need more homes for rent.
But therefore,
if I may say, my general reservation about such moves is that they would restrict the quantity of supply. And supply is the critical thing.
I understand, but aren't you therefore effectively saying you are willing to tolerate poor conditions in the private rented sector?
No.
Well, you must be, because you must be because if you are saying that you do not want to impose any more regulations on landlords because it might discourage them from putting property in the market, you're effectively saying you are willing to tolerate landlords getting away with this kind of things because although it's not because it is not illegal at the moment, although it might be considered not to be best practice in the interest of tenants.
No, look, what we're doing is we're encouraging all London landlords, all major landlords, letting agents, bodies have signed up to the London rental standards to improve tenants' experience, and that is we are having a great deal.
Could you tell us how many landlords are currently signed up?
13,000 so far.
Out of 300,000 landlords in London.
We plan to get to 100,000 by 2016.
You have increased the number of landlords signed up to this by 2,400 in the 17 months since the election. You said by 2016 you want 100,000 landlords signed up. At the current rate, it would take over 51 years to sign up 100,000 landlords. And even then, that would only represent a third of the landlords operating in London.
Can I just give you some figures, which I think may be of interest to you?
I'm always sceptical when you offer to give me figures, Mr. Mayor.
These were done by the English Housing Survey, okay? And I think what you're doing is campaigning now on the experiences of people in the private rented sector who have a tough time. And you're quite right to do so. But it is interesting to note that people who are satisfied across all tenancy types, people who are satisfied with their experience, those who are owner-occupiers are 93% satisfied, private renters are 82% satisfied, council tenants are 66% satisfied, and housing association tenants 74% satisfied. So I think it is an illusion to say that it is the private rented sector that is experiencing the worst of the deal at the moment. And indeed, if you look at
I'll give you a figure, Mr. Mayor.
If you look at whether they're satisfied with their tenure or not, this is a very interesting study. It shows that owner-occupiers have roughly the same rate of satisfaction. They're very happy to be owner-occupiers. Private renters overwhelmingly they want to be. They are 48% satisfied. They would much rather have a share of their value of their property as well. And the same point can be made about council tenants. Now,
I'll give you a statistic, Mr. Mayor. The number of complaints.
That shows to me that we need to build many more homes. We need to build many more homes for part buy, part rent.
You're not saying anything that anyone could possibly disagree with, Mr. Mayor.
Well, of course not, because I'm right.
But I'm asking specifically about conditions in the private rented sector, and I'll give you a statistic, which is that complaints against landlords have risen 47% since 2008. When, of course, you took up office as Mayor of London. So I think there is a very serious problem.
Well,
and I speak as someone who lives in the private rented sector.
Well, and I hope you have the best possible experience, and if you don't, then you must write to me about it. And I will do what I can to take up your...
I've learned not to waste my time on that, Mr. Mayor.
Well, there you go.
And I will leave it there. Thank you.
I'll do my best to help you, Tom,
Thank you.
Even though you reject it.
Assembly Member Twycross.
I was pleased to hear that you're aware of the issue around rent levels in the private rented sector. And it's clearly a very big issue. And I just wanted to raise the point that during the first quarter of 2013, monthly rents in London were almost 12% higher than they were the year before in the private. So in Wandsworth, they went up by over 15%. In Southwark, they went up over 12.5%. And in Tower Hamlets, they went up over 16.5%. And these rises don't show any sign of slowing down. Cool. And they're contributing to the overall cost of living crisis faced by many Londoners, with Shelter suggesting that families are cutting back on food as a result of increased private sector rent. When do you think that private sector rent inflation will stabilise at a more affordable level?
Well, I mean, it's interesting you should ask that question, Fiona, because I just said in answer to Tom that the briefing I have tells me that across all levels in the last year, across all tenants in the last year, rents actually rose by 1.9%, which is less than inflation. Now, I fully accept that will be scant consolation to many people who've experienced much higher rates of increase, and clearly the answer is to tackle that problem both by crediting landlords, which is what we are doing, trying to minimise the bad experiences that Tom's constituents have been having, but above all by building more homes, and that is the answer. And you won't build more homes if you turn your back on international investment, or if you are over prescriptive in your approach.
I mean, I think there is a real issue, and clearly there's some dispute over the figures, and it's sort of anecdotally clearly rents are rising, and I think that it would be useful to clarify that point, because I'm clear that talking to people, rents are rising when people move
Well,
to
that's my
rents
impression.
are rising.
Frankly, Fiona, that's my impression too, and I'm surprised by these figures.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised by by the figures. And actually, the recently published poverty profile for London shows that in the last 10 years, while poverty for those living in social housing has fallen, poverty among private renters is up by 460,000, which is a very concerning trend, and I'd suggest that unless something's done about it, the increase in poverty among private renters will just continue to rise. And I just wanted to raise with you that in June, the majority of the Assembly's Housing Committee called for a pilot of rent stabilisation to be introduced. Yeah. Which would include measures that would limit rent increases for tenants within their contracts. And given how desperate the situation clearly now is, will you take up the committee's recommendation and develop a plan for piloting rent stabilisation in the private
You mean
rented
rent
sector?
controls?
It's not the same as rent controls. It would be stabilisation through second-generation rent controls. So, measures. Well, it's not the same as the previous system. Well, it's not the same as the previous system that was in place. Okay. So I think let's talk about it as a serious measure.
Okay, Fiona, I will certainly look at it.
Yeah. Because I think if the government can allow you to put in place a pilot, we could see whether it would work.
I must give you my instinctive view, which is basically unchanged, which is that all these ideas, though they sound good on paper, they seem to offer hope and consolation to people who are facing big increases in rent. The difficulty is that they could lead, and almost certainly would lead, to a reduction in supply, a deterioration in the market.
That's why we'll be proposing a pilot, just to see whether that's true or not. But I think that the situation's
it's difficult to see how you could get a pilot to work in a particular area without lots of.
Well, I think it would be worth considering. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to consider anything.
No, it's not a question, but I think.
Thank you. Can we at this stage just welcome pupils from Sullivan Primary School in Fulham? Welcome to Mayor's Question Time.
Morning.
And can I call Assembly Member Boff?
Mr Mayor, the Housing Committee recently did a review on the privately rented sector. Will you acquaint yourself with the number of witnesses who said that rent controls would increase or keep supply at the same level?
So would I reacquaint
Would you acquaint yourself with the number of witnesses who said that putting in rent controls would increase supply or indeed keep it at the same level?
I would be very happy to do so. I can't.
It will take you very quick. It's very quick because there were none, Mr Mayor, none whatsoever. And bearing in mind that the problems in London are supply, anything that destroys that supply destroys housing in London. Thank you.
I think that's entirely right. It is very, very difficult. There is no magic legislative fix for this. The only long-term answer is build more houses.
Thank you. Can we then move on to the next question on the order paper on body-worn cameras for the MPS in the name of Assembly Member Evans?
Body-worn cameras, yes, is the answer, Roger.
Well, I'm very.
Let's do it. I'm totally in favour of it. I can think of lots of occasions, notably recent ones, where the use of body-worn cameras would obviate any future confusion about what might or might not have taken place between individuals and the police, and I think it's a thoroughly good idea.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that positive response from you. Last year, my colleague, Mr. James Cleverly, asked you about this, and you stated that the MPS was working with current suppliers to capitalise on innovation and emerging technology to produce this sort of equipment. Can you give us an update
yes,
on how that's
I can.
gone since last year?
It's being used in 8 boroughs at the moment. This system, the Sutton is particularly large, and Lambeth. In my view, we could go even further, but we're still at the piloting stage.
Right. And do you expect that use of body-worn cameras by patrol officers will actually reduce the number of incidents of force used by those officers, and indeed the numbers of incidents where force or violence is used against them?
Yeah, I do. I think they will reduce all sorts of confusion and incivility generally, because we're going into a world now where every time I get on the tube or whatever, people are instantly taking photo or recording what I say, and that's fine. That's the way it is, and it has a very sanitising effect. It means that you don't behave disgracefully if you can possibly avoid it. You're kept. No, that's not me. You're kept. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and what it means is that public servants such as the police have a record of how they're behaving, but also, of course, a record of how the public are behaving. And I think it will be. I think it's the way it's all going to go. In the future, we're all going to have little Google implants in our retinas anyway, recording everything that goes on, and it's coming.
Well, I'm not sure I feel enthusiastic about broadening out the trial in the way that you suggest there. But in the policing trial, can you make sure that you take a look at evidence to see if it's actually able to reduce the amount of time taken to bring prosecutions to court and get...
Yeah, I mean, all that sort of data we will make sure that we make available, how it's working, the effect it's having. We'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper, which is on Help to Buy, and could it increase the housing supply by Assembly Member Biggs?
Yeah, I mean, the general purpose of Help to Buy is to
buy the next
to solve the problem that arose very, very acutely in 2008, when basically there wasn't enough confidence in the mortgage market. People didn't feel able to take out loans, and therefore the developers weren't feeling confident enough to build. They weren't sure that they would have a ready supply of takers who could get the finance. So it's an attempt to improve the financing chain, and the evidence seems to be, John, that it is working. The first phase of Help to Buy does seem to be increasing supply, and that's to be encouraged.
The question is about the second phase. Of course, the first phase.
Well, it's too. Sorry,
the first phase has to increase supply because it's only for new build properties. Probably the second phase is for existing properties, up to £600,000, and rather than just being swivel-eyed trots or whatever who are opposed to this, the Governor of the Bank of England, the Chief Executive of Lloyds TSB, the Research Director at the Adam Smith Institute, the ratings agency Fitch, Centre for Economics and Business Research, and I think even on were you to wear a cam yourself, you'd identify that you probably said this as well, recognise that there's a risk of this simply causing a bubble in London's housing economy.
Look, all I can say reasonably to you, John, it is too early to give any comment on how it's working. But insofar as it gives people, it helps people to take out mortgages that they might otherwise not be able to do, and it helps to get supply going, that will be a good thing. And that's what I said to you before on this matter, and I stick to it.
See, I have a feeling, and I think we all know this. I mean, your mantra repeatedly is that we have to increase supply. You recognise that this policy will do nothing to significantly increase supply. There is a very, very, very high risk in London, unlike other parts of the country where it might be quite an effective policy, that it will simply ramp up prices, make property more unaffordable, and create a bubble. And I think the fear that many commentators, not just people on the left, have is that it's going to create a bubble, classic conservative pre-election bubble. Following the election, interest rates will have to rise to correct that. And it will simply punish people it's supposedly trying to help. Cynical and political reasons.
I mean, I think the London property prices are plainly galloping away at an extraordinary rate. Now, I have to say, believe that is caused by Help to Buy. I think that there are many, many factors, but the number one factor is the colossal demand and the corresponding lack of supply. And the answer is to build, as I think I've now said for the 58th time this morning, 10 tens of thousands more homes than we've done in any year in the history of in the last 40 or 50 years.
So Help to Buy in London should have been confined to new
so
properties.
far, the Help to Buy programme does seem to have triggered additional homes, which is relevant and important. It does seem to have resulted in about 9,200 more homes. We think. Looking at the
phase two
figures,
is different.
The figures
Phase
here.
two.
Just let the Mayor complete his answer, and then I'll bring you back in.
I understand what John is saying about the difference between phase 1
answer, Chair,
and phase 2. All I will say about the difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is that phase 2 is yet ready to come into effect. The jury is out. Let's see what happens, okay? We are watching it. I want to stress we are watching it. What we want is a solution that increases supply of housing in London.
And I think we recognise that this is essentially, for London, a risk of being a pre-election bung by George Osborne. Well, that's the risk for us in London.
No. I mean, I just want to be very, very clear about this. The bubble, which you accurately, or rather the huge inflation of house prices in London, is a function of the massive desirability of our city internationally, partly, but overwhelmingly of the huge demand domestically to live in the capital. And if you look at what's happened to the population in the city, you can see why that is so. You cannot add more than 500,000 people to London as we have in the last 5 years. You cannot have the huge growth in the London working population without having a corresponding spike in house prices, and that is what is happening. We have to deal with that by expanding supply, and that will be massively to the benefit of London and to the whole UK economy.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper on the third runway at Heathrow in the name of Assemblymember Arbour.
Yes, I was, Tony, well spotted. I thought you were right to point out what the Shadow Chancellor had said. I thought it was surprising and disappointing that he should be going back to a failed Labour policy that would deliver nothing but blight and misery for millions of Londoners. It is not politically deliverable. It is not the right way forward. It is not a sound economic or environmental step for our city to build a third runway in the western suburbs of London. It is very, very worrying to hear that this is now the policy of the Shadow Chancellor. And in my view, the government should oppose it might and main.
In view of the fact that this Assembly across all political groups has been entirely united in opposition to the third runway, would it surprise you to know that at the last meeting of the Assembly, when I proposed the motion criticising Mr Balls for his stance on this matter, the Liberal Democrats, aided and abetted by the Greens, no doubt because they were paying off their debt to the Labour group on this Assembly, decided not to criticise Mr Balls for his stand on this matter.
You're joking. Do you mean the Liberal Democrats are secret third runway recidivists and enthusiasts? They want to inflict misery on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Londoners? Is that their policy? They want to increase congestion. Are they not taking any account of the fact that 750,000 people in London already have excess noise pollution, more than any other city in Europe by a factor of about 20? Huh?
The Liberal Democrats have...
Is that what they're saying?
The Liberal Democrats have always ignored the wishes of Londoners, Mr Mayor.
Is that really their policy? They're looking more than usually shamefaced. Unbelievable.
Right. Assembly Member Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr Mayor, you may have spotted today a couple of stories about Heathrow. One is that it seems that the major shareholder, Ferrovial, is perhaps reducing its take there, its share. And the other thing is that Mr Willie Walsh, well-known Chief Executive of British Airways,
very good business,
says that he's going to stay at Heathrow, but there won't be a third runway.
Willie's totally right. I think Willie Walsh is a very considerable businessman and does a great job. I mean, in an ideal world, I suppose he would like to build. He'd like to have 4 runways at Heathrow and have BA dominate that airport. What he's going to have, and I think he recognises it, is a situation in which it's no lose basically for BA. They will stay at Heathrow, They will continue to dominate, but I think he's right in saying that they won't get a third runway, and that is obviously the failure to have a new big hub airport is going to be, I think, in the long term, very, very damaging for this country. And the wrong solution is to put it at Heathrow. The wrong solution is to try to do it at Gatwick, because you then have a sort of crazy dual hub type solution. And the right thing is to do one of the three options which TfL is canvassing. And this argument is going to go on and on. I tell you something. I'll give you my confident prediction of what will happen. There will be whatever happens at the next election. The British establishment, broadly defined, that's to say the Treasury, the CBI, all those sorts of people, John Biggs, they will make a last desperate attempt. They will make a last desperate attempt to get a third runway at Heathrow. There will be a huge spasm of effort to do that. It will not prove politically possible. It will fail again. And then we will be back to square one. We will have wasted an unconscionable period of time. And we will have to get on with preparing for the right answer. And meanwhile, across Europe, across Asia, our competitors will have been getting on and doing the sensible thing. And it is very, very sad to see the way this discussion is proceeding. But Willie Walsh is, in his analysis, I'm afraid, completely right. There will be no third runway at Heathrow. It will not be politically deliverable, whatever Sir Howard Davies says at the end of this year, whatever the Treasury may currently think. And they may put in a second runway at Gatwick by 2019 or so, whenever they get permission to do it, but that will not be the long-term solution that London needs. And we've got to get on and prepare for the future.
Now, you just mentioned Sir Howard Davies and his commission. A week or two ago, he made a statement to a press conference, as I recollect. He seemed to be suggesting some possibility of better access to airports, and I think many commentators thought that he was suggesting possibly an extra runway at Gatwick, maybe at Stansted. But I wonder, where do you see your favoured option of the North Kent airport, which you've talked about so many times? I mean, where do you see that in the light of what Howard Davies said?
Well, it's difficult for me to know what the Commission will propose exactly, but I think that they will have a number of options in the mix. One of them will probably be a third runway at Heathrow, which I think is politically undeliverable. There will be the sort of multipolar solution where you have Gatwick, you have a second runway at Gatwick, you have two at Heathrow, maybe another one somewhere else, conceivably. I don't think that is a sensible solution. The economies that are thriving at the moment are those which take the bull by the horns and build hub airports with the size to handle large numbers of long-haul flights and then a large number of short-haul flights as well. And that's what happens at Frankfurt, at Amsterdam, at Charles de Gaulle, and elsewhere. And if you look at what's happening in the Gulf, that is exactly what they are doing. And in my view, the good sites for that, since you asked about the sites to the east of London, I think that the Foster proposal is excellent. The Isle of Grain site is excellent. You could go for the island solution. That is a bit further out, but it would offer fantastic possibility for growth. You could look at Stansted. Those, I think, are the three really viable long-term solutions. I think anybody who's interested in the future economic growth of this country, in this city, should look at the sites to the east of London and to look at, in particular, the Isle of Grain, where there is. We've talked a lot already this morning about population growth and the need to build more housing, the need to find places for people to live. It is to the east that you have the big opportunities. The city is reorientating itself towards the east. That is how I think we should be thinking. I'm afraid that the difficulty with Heathrow is it's right over. In order to get there, you have to fly right over the city, and you cause massive problems in West London, and you cannot expand Heathrow sufficiently in the long run to cope with the demands of the UK economy.
We've got some new ministers in the Department for Transport as a result of the last reshuffle. Are you talking to them along these lines?
Well, I haven't had the chance to talk to Robert Goodwill yet, but I will be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member O'Connell.
Your plans around airport expansion is very much predicated on the hub principle, I believe, which I take some issue with. I mean, cities like Istanbul, Moscow, Beijing, New York operate on a multi-airport basis.
Oh, this is total
nonsense. And so, just to let me continue, so an extra runway at Gatwick is not opposed by the local councils. In fact, the local councils support it. So surely a more practical solution would be an expansion of Gatwick, Heathrow remaining as is, and using Stansted as that triangle to work accordingly as it does in other cities, Mr. Mayor.
Well, if you look, it's just not what they're doing. If you look at what's happening in Beijing, they're now building a 9-runway new airport. If you look at what's happening in Istanbul, they're building, which you also mentioned, they're building a 6-runway new airport. We are falling further and further behind. We're losing business. It is an absolute tragedy that we cannot directly communicate now from London with these growth cities in China. Our business people have to fly out via Amsterdam, via Paris, and when it comes to, in order to get via Frankfurt, or sometimes via Helsinki. And so when it comes to Chinese decisions on where to locate their headquarters, where to bring their investment, I'm afraid for human beings, time spent on aeroplanes is time not spent with their families, time not spent doing other jobs, doing things that they could be doing, and they will make adverse decisions about London and about our economic prospects if they cannot readily get here. And I think we are being utterly foolish and short-termist in our current approach. I don't believe that the Gatwick dual hub model works. I have seen no evidence that will be successful in generating the extra flights and the extra destinations that we need. It will not create the hub, the big hub airport that the UK economy needs.
Okay. Well, we may be able, through you, Chair, to have our cake and eat it and have something towards the east, but I would, in principle, support particularly
I understand why, from the Croydon perspective, that would be an interesting solution. And maybe all such things can be done. But I do not see how you can continue trying to compete and have a globalised economy if we do not allow British business people to communicate directly, not just with China and destinations in Asia that are growing so fast now, but with Latin America as well. And it is why this is a great trading nation, and we are cutting ourselves off from sources of growth and jobs for generations to come.
I just think, Chair, that the Gatwick is more practical because, as I said earlier, the plans are afoot. There's not the vocal opposition. The councils are supportive. And so if it's to practicality, I think we're more likely to see a Gatwick runway, although the visionary aspect we will leave on the table, and I'll leave it.
Response to the from the Mayor on that.
I accept that, and I'm interested by what you say, Steve, about the democratic position in Sussex and the support there is in Sussex for a new runway at Gatwick. And, as you know, there is a proposal to have a sort of twin hub with a fast link between Heathrow and Gatwick, sealed airside system so that you're shot between one airport and the other. You'd have to build a high-speed rail link round the M25. It would be very difficult, very expensive, probably at least as expensive as building a new airport. But it could conceivably be done. I'm just not convinced that it would be the kind of offer that people want. People, when they come to a hub, they want to be able to transfer in less than 45 minutes.
Okay.
And what worries me about the dual hub solution is it would not work, airlines wouldn't use it, and it would fail.
Thank you. We'll leave that there and then move on to the next question on the order paper in the name of Assembly Member Arnold asking if community schools should be knocked down in order to build free schools.
Yes. Jennette, I think your question is about...
Are you saying yes?
Sorry?
Are you saying yes?
I said yes, I'm interested in your question, which I think is about free schools in Hammersmith and Fulham. Is that right?
I want to go on to my supplementary. If you could just give me a
Well,
yes or no answer.
I'm in favour of free schools, and where they could be.
The question is would that mean that you would then be in support of a school being bulldozed, a good school with satisfactory features being bulldozed to create a full school, a free school? Are you in favour?
Well, I
of
think
such a
you're
move?
referring. I think you're referring to. I mean, I don't want to see the unnecessary bulldozing of any good school, Jennette, obviously. But I think you're referring to a proposal to amalgamate two Fulham primary schools, New Kings and Sullivan, to create a combined school with benefits on the New Kings site from September 2014. The merger would free up Sullivan site, allow a new parent-prorated secondary free school, Fulham Boys School, to be set up. Fulham Boys School, FBS, was delayed because of lack of premises.
And Mayor, we can't hear what you're saying. We can't understand it.
Creates more school places for Hammersmith and Fulham.
Slow down.
It sounds good.
Mr. Mayor, can I say I'm putting my question on behalf of the pupils of Sullivan Primary School who are here today this morning, and they're here petitioning you because they are part of Save Their School.
This proposal...
can I just finish? Because the plans that have been proposed, that is to bulldoze down their school and put them in with another school so that their plot of land can be handed over to a free school, is just not on when you consider one of the critical things that we have in this area as well as across London is a shortage of primary schools. So what I'm asking on their behalf is, do you think that's fair? And if you don't, will you write to Hammersmith and Fulham and ask them to explain fully why at this time they are planning this? And I spelled all this out in my letter to you on the 19th. So can I get a sense that you're looking to get some clarity? Because it would be good if the pupils, teachers and parents left here this morning getting a sense that you are their mayor and that you want to get clarity so that you can speak up for them if the right thing isn't being done.
Yes. What this proposal is supposed to do is to create 800, is going to increase secondary school places, 800 badly needed new secondary school places, including sixth form places, and it will mean more funding and better facilities, I'm told, for Hammersmith and Fulham children, because amalgamating the two small primaries allows for significant savings, which is going to be reinvested in the pupils' education. It looks to me as though the overall objective is to increase supply of school places in Hammersmith and Fulham, which has got to be the right way forward.
No, my question is about the impact on Sullivan Primary School, the impact on primary school places.
The impact is positive.
The impact on the primary school places will be a reduction, because whereas we now have a 1.5 school intake, you will end up with one with less pupils in the school. I just want to move on because
I'm told that places at New Kings and Sullivan remain empty at the moment.
We'll have fewer places. And I just wanted to give regard to the pupils who are involved here, and they are part of this discussion because they believe their school, about 80% of them, this was their school of choice. So will you, firstly, visit Sullivan School to see for yourself, just to see what a policy that you're supporting is about, and to see that it is not going to cause detriment and eviction to the pupils of Sullivan Primary School?
I think I understand where you're coming from. What this proposal does, as I understand it, and obviously I don't have direct responsibility for schools in this city, unfortunately, so this is not my policy. I haven't promoted this myself. But it seems the briefing I have is that what this will create is more places, because there will now be an amalgamation which will free up a site for a new school. And I think possibly what you object to is the free school.
No, that's not where this question should be going to, Mr. Mayor. This question should be you taking responsibility, because you have.
I would love to take responsibility because I don't have the statutory power to do so.
You don't have the statutory powers, but you are interested in education. You've said so. You have created a unit here in that you've accepted and put in this building a unit. You spend about £30-odd million on educational matters. I'm saying that you are engaged in school and educational matters, and I just want to ask you again, will you visit Sullivan School to make clear what's happening so that you can petition on their behalf if you find their
I'm not
case
going. No. What I'm going to do.
So you're not going to visit them?
Well,
no?
I mean,
Okay. Will you then meet up with the pupils because they brought you a present? And will you meet up
I think
with
this is demagoguery, Jennette. You can't use the. This is sort of.
There's a present for you.
Thank you very much.
There's a present for you, and
I'm most grateful.
On your way out, before you have a coffee, will you just meet up with the pupils and their parents?
And I'm going to tell.
Just receive their present, and then just give them the respect for the fact that they've come here today.
Any presents will have to be given outside of the meeting.
I thought Jennette represented
At the end of this meeting, will you do that, Mr. Mayor? There's nothing to be frightened of. These are primary school pupils. Are you frightened? Are you frightened of meeting a handful of the most gorgeous, wonderful primary school children from this city?
Of course,
well,
I'll be more than happy to tell these wonderful primary school children and their parents and everybody else who is here what I understand to be the facts of the case, which is that their current schools are under subscribed.
There's the present for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Sullivan.
They brought it all the way, and they will be they'll be waiting for you.
I'll be delighted to tell them. The issue is, folks, it's very, very simple.
Chair, I've finished. They'll be waiting for you.
Are you frightened? You're frightened of hearing the answer.
I'm going to give him a chance.
You don't want to hear the answer. The answer is, there's a brilliant plan. You're going to love it. What's going to happen is they're going to amalgamate the schools to save, to economise on space, because the problem at the moment is that the current schools aren't filling all their classes.
They are.
No, not according to this. No. Not according to this. And there's a brilliant plan to have a new school.
Yeah.
A free school.
Yeah.
No?
No, you're so wrong.
It sounds brilliant.
You need to meet them.
It sounds absolutely brilliant.
No, you need to meet them. Anyway,
Why are you
finished.
against this new school?
Chair, I finished.
Why are you against this new school, Jennette?
Chair, I finished.
Come on, are you against this new school?
We'll move on to the next question on the order paper. Changes to London's probation service in the name of Assembly Member McCartney.
Yes. Thank you very much, Joanne. Actually, this is a serious and sensible question, unlike the last one, because there is a real issue here, and it relates to what's going to happen to the probation service in London, and we are concerned that it should be handled properly, that any contracting out should not prejudice the huge wealth of expertise that there is in the councils, the way we handle ex-offenders as it is, and we want to make sure that when it comes to this contracting out, that it's made properly accountable to us on the London Crime Reduction Board, number one, and that whoever is the contractor has a proper regard to what councils are doing. We don't squander the current wealth of expertise that there is in handling ex-offenders in London.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, my position is I think it's folly to privatise the probation service, but we may disagree with that. But I think we do have areas of common concern. One of the concerns is that there's nothing, it appears, in the current tender documents that compels the private contractor to engage with local partnerships who make that very integrated offender management scheme work. We all want to reduce reoffending, but if they don't have to have a seat at the table in our local crime and disorder partnerships, and there's no obligation to force them to do so. Is that a concern that you have as well?
And so we're working with the MOJ very much now to make sure this policy goes the right way.
So have you expressed those concerns?
Yes.
And is that a bottom line for you, that obligation for the private contractor to engage and to be accountable, as other partners are, is that a bottom line for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. The other concern that has been raised is that offenders who are high risk will be kept with the existing probation service, but a very slimmed down national probation service, and that those that are of low or medium risk will be, which are the vast majority, will be privatised out. But figures that I have show that about a quarter of offenders move between that medium to high risk in any 1 year, and both ways. Mm-hmm. We then have the situation that integrated offender management and caseworkers will therefore change. And is that a concern to you as well?
Yes,
you don't have the consistency of the same caseworker for ex-offenders.
Obviously, that is important. I mean, generally, I have a concern about the way this is going to be handled, and it's very important that there should be consistency and there should be accountability, and that it should be properly managed.
And will you actually ask the government to halt this privatisation until they have at least properly pilot tested this? Because I understand that Kenneth Clark did.
No, I think we've got to acknowledge there is a major problem in reoffending rates in London, and it's not, I don't think anybody would pretend, Joanne, that the current position is brilliant. We have very high rates of reoffending. I'm not convinced that those ex-offenders are being handled in exactly the way that they should be in order to stop them reoffending. It may be that by having a payment by results system, forgive me, you could make progress. And I think we should keep an open mind on that. Okay. So I'm not going to say stop everything. The thing must stay absolutely frozen. There can be no improvements, no reform, no introduction of private contractors. I think that would be a mistake. I think you might be able to achieve better results, but it's got to be done in a way that is accountable to London and that doesn't mean us losing the expertise of councils and everybody else who's involved in providing this service.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper on the expansion of the cycle hire scheme in the name of Assembly Member Tracy.
Yes, Dick, I am. Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to say that the hire bikes are going in your general direction pretty soon.
Yes.
Are they?
Well, I understand, sir.
Putney.
Indeed, Putney and North Wandsworth, and equally.
You're welcoming them with open arms?
I am very much welcoming, and so are my fellow residents, and good. I believe on the other side of the river too, in Fulham and Hammersmith and Fulham. Can I ask you just to talk a little about further expansion, because you've come into North Wandsworth, into Battersea and into Putney. Tooting would be very keen to have bikes if you're prepared to go into the south part of Wandsworth. What about that?
Tooting? I'm more than prepared to. I mean, absolutely. I'm amazed. Well, let's go there. But will the council help us with a bit of cash?
We need some positive answers from you first about going there before we can take the matter further. But there's certainly great enthusiasm. What about any further into boroughs? I mean, I represent Merton as well. Is there any likelihood that the cycle hire scheme will go to outer London boroughs, or is it simply to be the mini Holland scheme which you've announced?
It depends. There is a difficulty, as we've discussed before, of having very long chains of supply for the cycle hire scheme. Yeah. If you get it right out into the further reaches of London, then you've got these vans with the bikes going quite a long way to to replenish the stands, and it all becomes quite laborious, and you start to get into the position of, you know, those generals in the Second World War who find themselves a little bit too far so we're keen to do it, and generally we will expand as far as is practically possible. In the long run, I think there will be much more. There will be cycle hire schemes everywhere. Whether they will all be the same scheme, I'm not so certain.
Yeah. There is one other point that I've been asked to raise with you, and that is the matter of consultation before the docking stations go in. There are traders, shopkeepers who become rather bothered that they're losing parking outside their shops because of these docking stations. Are you satisfied that TfL is doing enough consultation on this, or do you believe it should be very much something for the local borough council?
Well, obviously there's a role for TfL, but principally I think with the installation of docking stations, that should be something that the boroughs are leading on. So if there are complaints from local businesses about lack of consultation, then I'd be inclined to ask the councils what they're doing there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move then on to the next question on the order paper on the 1914 campaign marking the centenary of the commencement of the First World War, in the name of Assembly Member O'Connell.
Thank you. Well, Steve, obviously there is going to be a great deal done to commemorate the Great War, the 1914-18 war and its attendant disasters. There will be, apart from anything else, a candlelit vigil of prayer and penitence at Westminster Abbey on the opening day of the centenary. That's the 4th of August next year. But I can tell you that we are currently working with the GLA is working, our culture unit is working with the DCMS and MOD to look at all sorts of other things that we can do to commemorate the First World War, including TfL is obviously getting involved in one way or the other, but there will be a great deal of activity on that front.
Thank you. I mean, I'm aware through the Bureau of Leaders that there's conversations to commemorate and mark the loss of members from the LCC and other associated bodies, and I think that's wholly appropriate. And I know that the boroughs also out there are marking it with appropriate events, and I know that say the GLA particularly, and I'm pleased to learn the GLA particularly will take part in that, and you, Mr Mayor, therefore you're saying that you indeed will lead that remembrance and commemoration yourself as in essence the political leader of the town.
That's right. You'll be aware that there were about 1,063 staff and 3 members of the London County Council who died on active service in the First World War, and obviously we will be particularly commemorating them.
Okay, I'm satisfied with
that. Thank you very much. Assembly Member Barber.
4 years ago, this side produced, and indeed the Planning Committee produced a report on war memorials in London, and we made a recommendation to the then Mayor that the London plan should have in it a recommendation to the boroughs that they protect all existing war memorials and ensure that they are looked after by local organisations, particularly schools, which will give them a direct interest in the people in their locality who are remembered on those local war memorials, and encourage them to take an interest in their predecessors and the sacrifices that they made. In some boroughs, this has been implemented. I wonder, in the light of the commemorations that there will be over the next 4 years, whether or not you would like to write to boroughs and draw their attention to the fact that this proposal has been made, and suggesting that this might be something that would be encouraged by you, and indeed possibly in a reiteration of the London plan, this could be made a statutory responsibility that existing war memorials shall be preserved.
What an interesting idea. I'm not certain what the statutory provision is at the moment for preserving war memorials, but you indicate that there isn't any. That of course is sad. and surprising. But I will look into it, and if there's something useful we can do to that effect, then certainly we should. One of the most deplorable phenomena of recent years is, of course, metal thefts, which have been so often associated with the desecration of war memorials, not just in London, but across the country.
Thank you very much. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper, entitled Summer A&E Crisis, in the name of Assembly Member Dr Sahota.
Yeah, thank you, Onka. You're absolutely right to raise this. I'm seeing the Secretary of State for Health in the next few weeks, and will be raising the issue of contingency planning for the NHS and making sure that London gets a decent share of the £500 million that's been set aside for A&E departments that are under particular pressure. You'll be familiar, obviously, I hope, with what we've said about asking Lord Darzi, to head up an independent commission to look at the healthcare system in London, to see, looking at long-term solutions to the pressure that A&Es are under.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for recognising that there is a crisis, which we are getting now in every season crisis in the A&E department. Have you been given any reassurances to through the Health Board that there are plans in place to deal with the situation for this winter months?
Well, as I say, as far as I'm aware, obviously I don't have statutory control over healthcare. But I am aware that there is a wodge of funding to help with A&Es over the winter period, which was announced on, I think, in last month. And one of the purposes of my meeting with Jeremy is to talk about what slice London will get of that and how it can be used to help in London.
I know we have been promised £55 million, and at the recent Health Committee, everyone accepted that this was not enough, that there is going to be a crisis, it's going to be pretty bad this winter. And I'm concerned that we haven't got any plans in place. The Health Committee in July this year said that we should have plans in place by the 30th of September across London of what's going to happen. And there were no plans in place at the moment. And I'm asking that you, through your Health Board, which you've established, that you find out what those plans are, because London is going to suffer. And Dr. Anne Ainsbury accepted and declared rather this can be a tough winter, particularly a winter which we now know where people have a choice whether to eat their food or heat their houses up. As John Major said yesterday, that we're going to have a winter of crisis, made worse by the energy bills, and I want to make sure that London is prepared for it.
Which is why, Jeremy, I think absolutely the right thing to announce a package of extra funding for A&Es, and we will be lobbying to make sure London gets so you will make sure that those plans are made public, and that we know what the plans are across the trusts in various hospitals.
Well,
I'm not responsible for the running of A&Es, as you know, Onka. So
but you are responsible for making sure we are prepared.
What I can certainly do is make sure that we will certainly be consulting with Anne Rainsbury about how she sees things in the months ahead, and if there's anything useful I can report back to you about that, then I will certainly do so. And I will, of course, be lobbying with the Secretary of State for a proper share for London of A&E provision.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking it. And also, last time you were about to go to the meeting of the Health Board last time when we spoke.
Yes.
And you said that you were going to look into why this meetings aren't held public. I raised the matter with Dr. Rainsbury, and she said there's no reason why they shouldn't be public. So have you made your mind up on that matter?
Yes. I think I'm very keen that there are some meetings which benefit from being held in public, and it's a fine decision. But at the moment, I think that since the Health Board is currently in its infancy, we will probably benefit more from the kind of frankness that you can get by not having every statement immediately taken outside, twisted and distorted and used for political purposes. And so for that reason, I think probably we'll continue with the way things are for the moment.
Although Dr. Rainsbury said that there was no reason why they should be private at all, but you think there are some private reasons.
I think it's my view is that health is so immensely political and capable of such immediate misconstruction and sometimes willful misconstruction by political.
London think healthcare is not critical, but very important to their well-being.
There's no reason why we shouldn't continue the way we are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Assembly Member Boff.
Mr. Mayor, I just wondered how you think the A&Es would look now if the government had listened to the Labour Party and not protected the budget of the NHS from the cuts to expenditure.
Well, I mean, the old Labour plan, which they dropped. I've got to be absolutely clear with people. I think that there's been a chronic failure to get to grips with the NHS in London. I think it's bedevilled by political problems, and I think we should get on and reform it. And you could improve better. You could have better health care. You could have better A&E service. You could have better primary care. And at the moment, I think Labour completely flunked it. And sooner or later it's going to have to be done.
To what extent do you think that the previous government's negotiation of GP contracts, which would dramatically reduce the availability of out-of-hours GP care, had on the weight of patients now going to A&Es?
I think it's whole. I think that it's completely dysfunctional. People go to A&E because they don't see how they're going to get through to a GP, and I think the idea of I'm just giving you my frank view, not necessarily the view of the Conservative Party. My frank view is that I think the system of having more polyclinics, having a different type of primary care, I think that was the right way forward. I think it was a great shame that Labour didn't do it. I think sooner or later we're going to have to do something like it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
But you wimped out.
We'll move on. You've had your questions. We'll move on. The electric vehicles question, the Green Group are out of time, so we will skip that.
No.
That will be a written answer. We'll then move on to victims' funding allocations for London in the name of Assembly Member.
I can be quite succinct on this, Jan. I think I basically agree with your analysis. I think that it's ludicrous to have a victims' funding allocation per head of population. It should be per victim, and so we'll be lobbying for that.
Have you let the government know that their proposals are ludicrous, though? Currently, London accounts for 24% of national funding for victims. It will be going down to about 15%, which will mean that nationally there will be over £18 spent per victim, but in London there'll be a third less, only £12.65.
I understand. We've written to Chris Grayling, and Stephen Greenhalgh is in contact with them.
But have you put it in those terms that these proposals are totally unacceptable and that you will resist them with all your might?
I have put it in more or less those terms.
Okay. And there's that you've written to them?
I have written to the Justice Secretary about this.
Could we have a copy of that letter?
I'm sure that can be made available. I see no reason at all. Why not?
Thank you. I think this is very serious, and that victims of crime in London will be seriously disadvantaged if this proposal goes ahead. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, and we note that commitment about circulating the letter to members. The next question on marketing housing developments in the name of Assembly Member Boff, Andrew has requested a written answer to that, so we will then move on to the next question on the order paper, which is on parental employment in the name of Assembly Member Knight.
Steve, if housing is the number one issue in London, this is the number two issue, is childcare, how to help parents back into work. As you know, we had a good session with the minister concerned, Liz Truss, and we're going to work closely to see with her to see what we can do to improve childcare and childcare provision in London and get more provision for childcare in schools, out of hours, that sort of solution. But we're spending a lot a lot of money on trying to help people into part-time working on a £25 million programme to create 20,000 part-time jobs to help people back into work. But the overall programme has got to be to create more jobs for everybody and to assist parents and non-parents alike to get into work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for acknowledging the importance of this issue. And just to reiterate that, we've got only 58% of mothers in couples in employment in London compared with 72% in the rest of the UK. So we've got almost 100,000 missing people from the labour force due to a lack of parental employment opportunities in London and a lack of childcare that's affordable. Mr. Mayor, will you commit, given the acknowledged importance of this issue, to developing a proper mayoral strategy for tackling the low levels of parental employment and the problems of childcare in London?
Yes, and we're going to do that through the LEP, which is taking a very, very close interest in this work. And KIT is working up plans to fulfil the commitment to provide, as I say, 20,000 part-time jobs. We do see this as a critical importance for London. Because the statistics you cite are broadly right. We find it's more difficult in London to get back into work if you've had a child than it is elsewhere in the country. That cannot be right. That is another economic inefficiency, like not being able to live near your place of work.
Indeed, Mr. Mayor, and this is an issue the Economy Committee, which you know I chair, has been looking at very recently. And one of the things that our witnesses told us is they're desperately frustrated at the lack of leadership coming from City Hall on this issue. And I'm very glad to hear that you're now prioritising this through the LEP. And I look forward I look forward to seeing a strategy coming out of the LEP. Do you know what time frame you've given the LEP? I can't give you
that now, but obviously we will be pursuing it urgently. And I'm interested by what you say about your the groups that you mentioned. If they could, I'd be very, very happy to. If you could pass their details on to KIT, we will make sure that we liaise with them directly and explain what we're doing and get their buy-in.
We can certainly do that. I think you said in an answer to a question from Joanne McCartney at the last Mayor's Question Time that there are clearly things that can be done, including things like encouraging schools to develop wraparound care packages for pupils and so on. Are those the kind of measures that you want to see built into your strategy?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. And can you, perhaps you could let me know when the LEP will be considering this issue, because I think it's absolutely important that the Assembly's Economy Committee can feed in its own evidence to the work that you're doing. Clearly this is a very important issue, and thank you for committing to producing a strategy.
Very happy.
Thank you. We'll then move on to the next question on the order paper, London's green economy, in the name of Assembly Member Cleverly.
James, well, thank you very much. I think it has been stunning to see the way London has continued to boom in this area. It is probably one of the leading city in the world now for green economy. I think there are lots of reasons for that. You've got obviously a strong green direction both at borough level and strategically here in City Hall. People know that we want to improve air quality. They know that we want cleaner, greener vehicles. They know that even though it's slow, we want more EVs, for instance. They know that we have a target to reduce CO2 by 2025. They understand the framework in which we're working. But I think it's also very important that London has such a huge green financial sector. This is the place where you have the expertise, the financial expertise. You also have the universities that have big departments dedicated to this stuff. And so you've got all three things. You've got a public sector demand for and push for this kind of measure. You've got the financial backing, and you've got the intellectual resources in the city as well.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased that some of the work that I did with the other members of the London Waste and Recycling Board, and I know that's work's been continued by Dick and the new board members there.
Absolutely. Sorry, I should have paid tribute to the L Ward and the work that they did.
Well, Actually, I have to say, I know we're going to do mutual paying tributes here, but I think actually the recent work has been very, very pleasing to see.
Well, I used to share our wall, but
all three of us. But I think one of the things that really struck me, and I thought very much about your trip to China recently, is that as these emerging economies have higher levels of personal consumer consumption, they increasingly start being faced with some of the challenges that we currently get about greener ways of waste disposal, etc., etc. That actually the success that we've seen in London over the last few years becomes an incredibly valuable exportable knowledge base. Yeah. And I'm very keen to explore what can be done to ensure that London is the world leader at how big cities deal with the challenges and opportunities of the green economy.
Well, I signed a memorandum of understanding with the Mayor of Beijing, and they were absolutely fascinated to hear what we had done to reduce NOx, as we have done, by 20%, PM10s and PM2.5s by 15%, just since I've been mayor. I think they were amazed, because they've got huge problems, as you know, in Beijing, in that area. And also at Peking University, they saw real scope for cooperation between London institutions and China on trying to do that, some of the things that we've been successful in doing here in our city. So it is an important part of the overall global brand of London that it is a city that values this technology, that is trying to improve the environment, improve quality of life, which is now the #1 agenda issue in China, but also to drive down costs. And this is where I think people don't sometimes realise the value of what we're doing. If you can insulate people's homes properly and retrofit them, as we're doing now with 60,000 homes across London, then you will help people, often the groups that Onka is describing, who face high energy bills and high food costs and all the rest of it. You can help them to make ends meet, and that is a huge objective now.
And Mr. Mayor, will you also commit to publicly recognising the massive market leadership that our green-related financial services sector has? I mean, we currently have 97% of the carbon finance subsector contained within London, and in the orgy of denouncing London's financial services sector, I know you have led the way.
I have resisted.
Absolutely, you have resisted. You've led the way. Can I ask that you don't allow some of the lazy accusations about the London's financial service sector to cloud the excellent work that's being done by London in actually funding collating, gathering the money to fund exactly these kind of projects?
Of course, and it is absolutely true that without a great centre in Europe, and it's probably the greatest in the world, for the accumulation and distribution of capital for new ventures, we would not have medical breakthroughs or new cancer drugs or indeed the environmental breakthroughs that you describe. And it's greatly to the advantage of the environment that we have a strong financial services industry in London.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. On that note, can I ask the Assembly Understanding Orders to agree to extend the meeting to conclude the remaining business?
Agreed.
Thank you. We then move on to the penultimate question on the order paper today on the living wage in the name of Assembly Member Arbour.
Tony, as ever, I agree with you, comrade. I think that what the Business Secretary says is... I think the idea, a compulsory living wage, in my view, would not be the right way forward. We're having great success in expanding the London living wage. You can hear more about it on November the 4th.
Do you not think addressing the level of low wages in London can best be dealt with not by tinkering with wage levels, but by looking at the overall taxation policy? For example, raising the threshold at which national insurance is paid.
Yeah.
National insurance is disproportionately paid by lower paid workers than higher paid workers. And that would enable, you will recall I raised the matter before in relation to new businesses starting up in London, suggesting that a holiday be given to the minimum wage to new employers for a period of 6 months to encourage new employers to take people on. Yes. I've subsequently refined that by saying that maybe the way to deal with it is, as I have suggested, perhaps through the the level at which national insurance becomes payable.
I mean, I think all of us, certainly on your side of the horseshoe, would be in favour of trying to take low income people out of all sorts of taxation, and NI is unquestionably just another form of taxation the way it currently works. And I think that's broadly speaking right. But I don't want that to dissipate our energies on the living wage campaign. I do believe in the living wage. I think it is right that companies who can well afford it should pay their staff a wage that will allow them to live in London. And we've expanded it, we're going to keep expanding it, it's popular and it's successful, and it's put about £60 million into the pockets of some of the poorest working families in London.
Yes. You'll be pleased to know, but unsurprised to know, that although one of the members of Parliament for Richmond upon Thames thinks there should be no compulsory living wage, that the Liberal Democrats who are represented on that council, and indeed are represented here today, don't agree with their Member of Parliament and are saying that all those people who are employed by contractors...
Are the Liberal Democrats divided?
Well, on the face...
It's like splitting the atom.
Yes, on the face of it, they are here. But locally, they disagree with their Member of Parliament and are suggesting that the local authority insists that all those who supply the local authority with goods and services and employees should be compelled to pay the living wage. Do you think that's an appropriate way for, I say in quotation marks, a responsible political party to behave?
Well, I think, as I say, now you put it like that, I think compulsion is not the way forward. We're working well by not going for compulsion, but I have to say, Tony, I do think that lots of councils could do better in implementing this. And I understand why the Liberal Democrats reach, because they're so basically illiberal in all their instincts, they reach for the lever of compulsion. I would rather not use compulsion. I would rather use the instruments of moral suasion, shame, and... No, shame, not forget shame. Shame, we deprecate shame. Moral suasion and exhortation, uplift. That's what we go for. Yes, the living wage is good for employees, and it's good for the companies that pay it.
Well, that is undoubtedly so, because the more money these characters have, the more money that they have to spend, and the velocity of exchange increases. But in the particular case of this one small London borough, if we were to do that, that would involve an extra £3 million expenditure, which has to be found by the ordinary ratepayer. It cannot be right that ratepayers who may themselves be earning less than the London living wage have to subsidise somebody else getting it.
I see that point. This is not easy, and it's one of the reasons it's taken so long to get all the downstream contractors from our bodies to pay the London living wage. These are arguments that have to be made, and I can see the problem that you raise. That's why I'm not inclined to go for compulsion, but I am inclined to extend the LLW as fast as we can.
Thank you. The Liberal Democrats are about to run out of time, so a very quick question from Assembly Member Knight, and you must allow time for the Mayor to answer in the 49 seconds you've got remaining.
Mr Mayor, given you want all London authorities to become accredited living wage employers, would you encourage your Conservative colleagues in Richmond upon Thames to join the Liberal Democrats in voting for the borough to become an accredited living wage employer?
I would support my Conservative colleagues in virtually everything that they do, as you know, Stephen. But what I think the general principle of council signing up is a good one. Where I think I differ from you is in wishing to do this by compulsion. We think the living wage has been successful.
The council can decide.
No, there's not time
we think
the
living wage has been successful precisely because people come to see the benefits of paying it themselves.
Thank you. We'll then move on to Assembly Member Duval.
I hope on the 4th of November you're going to announce how you're going to accelerate the voluntary approach, because we have already said if we go on the same way we're going now, it's going to take 400 years to cover all those individuals in London to get a decent London living wage. Now, in terms of the desire, I understand about the compulsion issue, but shouldn't we be looking for, and I think the issue is not about destroying jobs. We've heard some of these arguments before. We know that consumption goes up. We know that benefits doesn't get taken up if you give people a decent wage. Shouldn't we be looking for some creative solutions around supporting small, medium-sized enterprises, such as the recent studies that have been said about let's try and hypothecate the potential tax and benefit savings where we can support SMEs, right, those who say they're at the margins and can't prove this money, and give them some money back in supporting those issues.
That's a very interesting idea.
Aren't they the creative solutions where we can embed the London living wage? The trouble is, Mr Mayor, I'm not sure if all your colleagues want to pay a London living wage. I think some of them still believe in a low-wage economy, don't believe in the arguments that you put forward, and you've had some of you arguing for the abolition of the minimum wage. Surely we need to move the minimum wage up towards the London living wage as well, at the same time as we go in terms of the voluntary efforts that you're endeavouring to make the case for in terms of London.
Len, just on, I think your ideas of hypothecating the possible gains that might be made in welfare savings and so on, that's very interesting. We should, if we can make that work, I think we should have a look at that. The London living wage has expanded in the last 5 years. I mean, there were 27 companies that offered it when I came in. There are now 174 and a further 100 in the process of accreditation. I accept that is nothing like enough. The difficulties are very acute, particularly in some of the sectors in London where, catering, hospitality. I've had the argument, you'll have had the argument with these sectors. It is not easy to persuade them that they can do it. But in retail,
if you can draw your comments to a close now, because the Labour Group are out of time, so if you can draw your comments to a close, mate.
I can tell you that I have had many personal conversations with the leaders of our great retail organisations.
Thank you.
Exhorting them to do this. Some of them are getting
thank you. We must close that question down there. Labour Group are out of time. We then move on to the final question on the order paper today, which is on transparency, in the name of Assembly Member Borwick.
Victoria, thank you. The answer is absolutely. We are. I've asked TfL to look at what. Congratulate you on what you have taken up these cases, particularly and personally. I think there was a particular victim in Oxford Street on whose behalf you worked and continue to work. I understand what you want. You want to be able to compare the accident rates of different bus operators. We're going to. I've asked TfL to make it possible for you to have that data.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am very much aware that you do believe in transparency, and of course you earlier on this morning you talked about sunlight as being a very good remedy.
Yeah.
So I think
Judge Learned Hand said that, yes.
I think the point is that this does go back to the culture at TfL, and in fairness, although we have been focusing here on trying to extract particular information, it wouldn't be the first time that TfL have been accused of perhaps being less than transparent in their decision-making processes. So I'm urging you today to go back to TfL and say, can you not just look at using this as an example, where we, for example, as a group have been waiting over 6 months for figures, borough by borough, on KSIs and fatalities for both pedestrians and cyclists, and we're having difficulty getting truthful and honest information, because every time you start making a comment about these things, the TfL seem to go back into their shell and say, oh, no, this is legal, this is legal. No, it isn't legal. This is transparency, and we need, with all of us with constituents, want to be able to know where we are we making improvements? And if not, it enables boroughs to actually take this issue up and to go back and say, OK, what more could they be doing locally to improve safety on our streets?
Yeah.
But in the heart of all of this is, can you improve the transparency at TfL?
You want to know which bus operators have the best record.
That was the start of the question, but actually, a result of which, if you ask around, TfL are not always good at responding either promptly or in enough depth to our questions.
Well, as I say, I've asked them to come up with answers to your particular questions, and I think that's probably the best I can.
Thank you very much indeed for that assurance.
Victoria.
Thank you very much. That concludes the questions from members today. So can we thank the Mayor for his answers, and can I now ask the Assembly to agree the motion which is set out on the agenda in my name, which is that the Assembly notes the answers to the questions asked? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 5, the date of the next meeting will be the plenary meeting that will take place on 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 6th of November 2013, here in the Chamber. Item 6, any other business the Mayor considers urgent. A proposed that the Chair considers urgent. A proposed motion in my name has been circulated under cover of the supplementary agenda. Understanding orders, can I ask the members to decide without debate whether to permit consideration of this motion? Okay. Can we agree that? Thank you, members. And then can I formally move the motion on the christening of Prince George? Is that formally seconded by the Deputy Chair?
Formally seconded.
And are we happy to agree that? Okay. Thank you very much, members. That is agreed unanimously, and that concludes the meeting today. Thank you very much. Did I say no?
GLA. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall. This is City Hall, the home of the Greater London Authority, the Mayor and the London Assembly. This channel carries coverage of public proceedings of the Mayor and the London Assembly. This is City Hall, the home of London's democracy. This is City Hall.